Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is 6 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I am your friend and radio buddy. I am your Farb. I'm Brian Wilson, and we're here till 7 o'clock to bring you all kinds of news and information you can use. And we got a lot of news to cover here today. I'm telling you, it's an embarrassment of riches. We're going to start here with what happened on Capitol Hill today. Robert Hur, special counsel who has been investigating Joe Biden's illegal retention of classified documents, the man who said basically that he would not prosecute the current president of the United States because he didn't think a jury would convict an old man with a bad memory. Well, he's been on Capitol Hill answering questions about it. He's been getting it from both sides because, Republicans are upset that there wasn't a prosecution in this case, or there will be no prosecution. But on the other side of the equation, the Democrats are upset because they don't like the way that Robert Hur characterized the sitting president of the United States as a man with bad memory issues. So he's been getting a real dose on both sides. But we're going to look at some of the sound that occurred today, including a rather lengthy soundbite. We'll get to that in a minute, that I think was sort of the highlight of the entire hearing. First of all, Jim Jordan, chairman of the committee, in his opening statement.
Mr. Hur produced a 345-page report, but in the end, it boils down to a few key facts. Joe Biden kept classified information. Joe Biden failed to properly secure classified information. And Joe Biden shared classified information with people he wasn't supposed to. Joe Biden broke the law. But because he's a forgetful old man who would appear sympathetic to a jury, Mr. Hur chose not to bring charges.
Now, Hur did a preemptive strike during his opening statement, knowing that Democrats were going to come at him about the memory stuff. And here's how he defended his statements.
The evidence and the president himself put his memory squarely at issue. We interviewed the president and asked him about his recorded statement. Quote, "I just found all the classified stuff downstairs," end quote. He told us that he didn't remember saying that to his ghostwriter. He also said he didn't remember finding any classified material in his home after his vice presidency. And he didn't remember anything about how classified documents about Afghanistan made their way into his garage. My assessment in the report about the relevance of the president's memory was necessary and accurate and fair. Most importantly, what I wrote is what I believe the evidence shows and what I expect jurors would perceive and believe. I did not sanitize my explanation, nor did I disparage the president unfairly. I explained to the Attorney General my decision and the reasons for it. That's what I was required to do.
Yeah, remember when Joe Biden attacked her for, bringing up his son, and that Biden couldn't remember the date in which his son died, the year in which he died, and Biden took great offense to that. Well, as it turns out, Hur didn't bring it up at all. It was the president who brought it up, according to the transcript. Now, the one thing that Biden has said from the very beginning when this report came out is that he was completely exonerated. And Congresswoman Jayapal tried to run with that today, but Hur was having none of it. It was probably one of the most argumentative points of the hearing.
I need to go back and make sure that I take note of a word that you used, exoneration. That is not a word that
I'm
appears
going
in
to
the
continue
report,
with my questions.
I'm
going to continue with my questions. I know that the term
I ultimately reached
I know
related
that
to whether
the term
sufficient evidence existed such that the likely outcome
you exonerated
would be a conviction.
I know that
did
the
not
term
exonerate him.
willful
That word does not appear in
retention
the
has a
report, Congresswoman.
Mr. Hur, it's my time.
She was kind of sort of, trying to run over him because he was going to state that there was no exoneration. And there wasn't. It's just that they didn't feel like he could win the case. Now, that brings me to what I think is probably the best moment of the hearing. Now, this is more than 4 minutes. And again, I don't normally run sound that is this long. But Jim Jordan, finally had enough about halfway through the hearing. And just wanted to sort of, recapsulate some stuff and to sort of go back over the key points. And the main reason why he thinks that Joe Biden decided to take classified documents and squirrel them away. Here is about 4 minutes and change of Jim Jordan and Robert Hur going back and forth, and I think it's really the highlight of the hearing.
Mr. Hur, why did he do it? Why did Joe Biden, in your words, willfully retain and disclose classified materials? I mean, he knew the law. Been in office like 50 years. 5 decades in the United States Senate, chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, 8 years as vice president. He got briefed every day as vice president. He's been in the Situation Room. In fact, you know he knew the rules because you said so on page 226. President Biden was deeply familiar with the measures taken to safeguard classified documents. And Joe Biden told us he knew the rules. Mr. Armstrong said this earlier. Joe Biden was deeply familiar with it. You're exactly right, because he told us when Jack Smith goes after President Trump, Joe Biden says, how could this happen? What data was in those documents that could compromise sources and methods? It's irresponsible. So Joe Biden knew the rules. You know he knew the rules. And Joe Biden told us he knew the rules. So, Mr. Hur, why did he break them?
Congressman, the conclusion as to exactly why the president did what he did is not one that we explicitly address in the report. The report explains my decision to the Attorney General that no criminal charges were warranted in this manner.
I think you did tell us. I think you told us, Mr. Hur. Page 231, you said this. President Biden had strong motivations. That's a key word. We're getting to motive now. President Biden had strong motivations to ignore the proper procedures for safeguarding the classified information in his notebooks. Why did he have strong motivations? Because, next word, because he decided months before leaving office to write a book. To write a book. That was his motive. He knew the rules. He broke them because he was writing a book. And you further say, and he began meeting with the ghostwriter while he was still vice president. There's the motive. Mr. Hur, how much did President Biden get paid for his book?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure if that information appears in the report.
It sure does. There's a dollar amount in there. You remember?
I don't. It may be $8 million. If that's
$8 million. Joe Biden had 8 million reasons to break the rules. Took classified information and shared it with the guy who was writing the book. That's why he did. He knew the rules, but he broke them for $8 million in a book advance. But you know what? It wasn't just the money. Joe Biden, here's this page 231, very next page. Joe Biden, in your report, Joe Biden viewed his notebooks as an irreplaceable, contemporaneous record of the most important moments of his vice presidency. He'd written this all down for the book, for the $8 million. And the next thing you say in your report is, quote, such a record would buttress his legacy as a world leader. You know what this is? It wasn't just the money. It wasn't just $8 million. It was also his ego. Pride and money is why he knowingly violated the rules. The oldest motives in the book, pride and money. You agree with that, Mr. Hur? You wrote it in your report.
That language, and it does appear in the report, and we did identify evidence supporting those assessments.
You also had another interesting statement in your report. You said Joe Biden, I want to make sure I get this right, viewed himself as a man of presidential timber. Remember that statement, Mr. Hur?
I believe that does appear in the report, at least in the executive summary.
I think this is interesting, because here's the scary part. Page 200. I said this earlier in my opening statement. Page 200. Joe Biden, this is a quote, Joe Biden risked serious damage to America's national security when he shared information with his ghostwriter. Shared it with his ghostwriter, the guy who was helping Joe Biden get $8 million. And oh, by the way, Mr. Hur, what did that ghostwriter do with the information Joe Biden shared with him on his laptop? What did he do after you were named special counsel?
Chairman, if you're referring to the audio recordings that Mr. Zwanitzer created of his conversations with
exactly
Mr. Biden,
what I'm referring to.
He slid, if I remember correctly, he slid those files into his recycle bin on his computer.
And there were many questions about why the ghostwriter was not charged, and I think they're fair questions. Going back just a moment to something that Jim Jordan talked about there, about the fact that these were very classified documents, handled very carelessly, and that they well may have contained information that would be very interesting to our adversaries on the world stage. When you lose control of classified documents, you automatically must assume that they have been compromised. I mean, you just have to assume that until you can prove otherwise. And so the question was asked, is there a damage assessment underway now to find out, what happened and if anybody might have gotten a hold of these documents, and were we in any way compromised by that?
Since the release of the report, to your knowledge, has the Justice Department started to analyze a damage assessment of what may have been disclosed by these documents being mishandled and any ongoing national security risks from the inappropriate storage and retention of the documents?
Congresswoman, my understanding is that such a damage assessment is underway in coordination and cooperation with the members of the intelligence community.
So let's understand here. Joe Biden violated the law. He was not exonerated, according to this report. Now, that doesn't mean that, that they're going to bring charges because they decided they didn't have a very good chance of winning the case. And they really would have gone before, a D.C. jury? What D.C. jury? I mean, in a town where Democrats outweigh Republicans by, I think it's like 3 or 4 to 1. What chance do you have of getting a conviction? And he knows that. And so that's part of the reason why he didn't want to bring charges. Other reasons, he said he felt like the president would present himself as a very, nice old man who just had a very poor memory. I would subject to you that his memory was not as poor as he let on in this particular case, that it was to his advantage. I don't know. You can't have both. You can't say on one hand, well, I have a poor memory, so I don't remember all the details about these classified documents. And then on the other hand, say, no, there's no problem with my memory at all. I'm capable of being the president of the United States. Therein lies a real problem, a real problem for this president. So, the other thing to be raised here is, the sort of the duplicity of the whole thing. On one hand, we have a special counsel assigned to look at the situation with Joe Biden, and we find that there were documents here, there were documents there were documents in the garage next to the Corvette, there were some at Biden Penn Center. Oh, they were everywhere. And by the way, he's been collecting this stuff since he was a senator. I mean, it goes way, way, way back. I mean, it's a pretty serious and egregious violation of the rules for handling classified information. And on that hand, they decide no charges, we're not going to bring a case. And then on the other hand, you look at Donald Trump's case, which I don't think is any worse. I mean, I think that you could make a stronger argument that Trump had the ability to declassify this stuff because he was actually the president, not the vice president at the time. But one way or the other, now they're going to bring charges against Trump. No charges against Biden, but plenty of charges against Trump. Not right, not fair, and the American people are well aware of this. This is why I think that no matter what gets thrown at Donald Trump right now, it doesn't hurt him, because the people look at this and they say, well, that's just blatantly unfair, that there's no equal justice under the law. Justice is no longer blind. Justice is making political decisions. And I would tell you that I agree 1,000%. So although some of this stuff had come out before when the report was released, it was important to hear her say these things. But the most important thing you walk away here from is he had 8 million reasons to keep those documents. He wanted to write a book that would puff up his ego and puff up his reputation as a man who was of presidential timber. That's why he left the office of the vice presidency and squirreled those documents away, and that is a violation of the law, even if they decide not to prosecute the case. 20 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
More aid to Gaza as a floating port gets constructed there. Graduation rate awful at one Nashville high school. In Money News, those stories 3:30, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
That's right. It's not you haven't gone through a time warp. It's actually an early edition of Mac Maury's Wide Wild World of Sports, because we have to spend some time here today talking about somebody who's been very important to the sports scene in Nashville, and we're talking, of course, the one, the only, Derrick Henry. So, Mac Maury, let's just spend some moments here talking about Derrick Henry and all the things that he has meant to the Nashville community and the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, it comes to the Titans in a time of rebuild, losing coaches, constant coaching carousel, not necessarily a quarterback to speak of as a leader of this team. And Derrick Henry gets drafted out of Alabama in this franchise that's just kind of in flux, trying to find their footing, trying to find someone that they can hang their hat on to root for Sundays, day in, day out, week in, week out. And Derrick Henry vaulted himself as that figure in Nashville for years. Number 22, King Henry in the backfield was just so inevitable. It became so consistent. The game-breaking plays that he made week in and week out to give these guys chances, to win these guys football games, to bring them into the playoffs. I mean, it's very rare that you see a football team in the modern day in the NFL make the playoffs, make an AFC championship game off the backs of a running back. And that's what Derrick Henry did right here for the Tennessee Titans for so many years. I mean, last year, Brian turned 30 years old. He still led the league in rushing attempts. I mean, he was willing to put his body on the line every season for this city and for this team. And yeah, didn't reach the ultimate goal here, but it wasn't because of a lack of effort or a lack of yards and production from King Henry. What a year.
We need to step in here, and in case people have just joined us and don't know, although it's been expected for some time now, the word that came down today officially is that Derrick Henry has signed a 2-year contract with the Ravens. Now, we pretty much knew that he wasn't going to stay with the Titans, but now he goes to the Ravens, and what do you think he brings to that team?
I mean, this is a Baltimore Ravens squad that, we just saw them in the AFC Championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Tough.
It's tough. I mean, MVP quarterback, now 2-time MVP quarterback in Lamar Jackson. They've garnered some wide receivers. They have an amazing head coach and John Harbaugh. They've got a great defense. They have a culture there. And guess what? They know how to run the football, partially because of Lamar Jackson, but they've had a slew of running backs in there for the past years, and it doesn't matter. They're going to be top 5 in rushing attempts and rushing yards every season, and Derrick Henry is only going to elevate that production there. Putting him with you have a Heisman backfield. You've got a Heisman-winning quarterback, a Heisman-winning running back. Wow. Both of them can beat the defense with their legs. I mean, that read option game where Lamar has that ball in Derrick Henry's stomach, and for that split second, it could go left with King Henry. It could go right with 2-time MVP Lamar Jackson. If you're a linebacker standing in the middle of the football field, you are petrified. And that's what the Baltimore Ravens have now. So, as a Titans fan, obviously this is sad. You're watching one of your favorite players and longtime franchise hero leave. But you're getting to go see him play on a really good squad for the last couple years of his career and have a chance to really go get a Lombardi trophy, which, let's be honest, for the next couple years, that's not a reality in Nashville.
Yeah, we're in a rebuilding phase,
that's
but
it.
Do you like the way that they have replaced him?
I do, yeah. So we talked about signing Tony Pollard yesterday. I think it was a little maybe too rich for me, $8 million a year for Tony Pollard, but I think the ceiling's there. Again, I mean, 2 years ago, this guy was thought of, he's going to blow up the league. He got hurt at the end of the season, kind of slowed him down last season, but he's only 26 years old, and we talked about his ability to catch passes on third down and medium, third down and long, something that Derrick Henry's just never really been able to do. That's not his strength. That's not what he does. Tony Pollard doesn't, break 6 tackles on one play and rush for 80 yards on a game. Pollard doesn't do things that Henry does, but Pollard can go catch passes, and he can pass protect as well. He can block really well in the backfield. So, yeah, I'm excited about where they're going. And, of course, rookie running back from last season, Tajay Spears showed a lot of flashes as a playmaker. So, yeah, obviously sad to see him go to the Ravens, but also, this is the next step in a rebuild, a pass-first offense, and they need running backs that can catch some passes. Pollard can do that.
All right. Well, Mac Maury, great assessment, and a sad moment for the fans here who love King Henry. Do you think there'll be some kind of, parade or some kind of goodbye because he was so beloved.
Yeah,
there really should be something.
There really should. And you know what? He's going to make the Titans Ring of Honor. There's no doubt. He'll have a ceremony someday. He'll come back. He'll be honored. I wouldn't be surprised if he signed a one-day contract at the end of his career to say, you know what, I'm going to
end it with the Titans.
Retire in two-tone blue.
Either. Right.
And also something real quick that this means is he leaves as the second leading rusher in Titans history. That most likely means Eddie George's 10,000 yards as a Titan on the ground may stand forever. Who knows? That record may never be broken.
All right, we'll leave it right there. Time for the news now at 3:30. Max taking off his sport hat, putting back on his news hat, and we'll revisit this again at 5:25. Right now, time for the news on Super Talk.
30 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock, Mac Morey with your top story. 71 degrees, sunny, and it couldn't feel much more spring and nice outside. Weather forecast, traffic report coming up. The United States Army 7th Transportation Brigade has been deployed following President Biden's orders to send troops to create an offshore aid port for Gaza. Ann Flaherty is in Virginia, where she learned how they will construct this floating port.
This is Army, not Navy. They are deploying some 500 soldiers today to go to the Middle East. Their mission is they're going to build a giant floating pier off of the coast of Gaza. It's essentially building a parking lot off the coastline where they're going to unload humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people off the Gaza Strip. When I spoke to the families, they said, we don't know when this mission will end, but we know it's an important one, and they'll be waiting for the service members to come home.
Schools in Tennessee, Fox 17 says that Glencliff High School is struggling with graduation rate. 53% of students graduating in 2022, 60% last year. The district average over 80%. The school also received an F letter grade from the state of Tennessee. Glencliff High School is blaming these problems on a lack of resources and most of their students being overage and that English is their second language. Some money news. Consumer prices rose 3.2% in February compared to a year ago. It's the second time this year the consumer price index showed higher than expected levels of inflation. Elizabeth Scholze.
This new report gives us a glimpse of the cost of everything from groceries to rent to gas. It shows that while overall inflation has improved, prices are still stubbornly high. And while on average, American salaries are also going up, these higher day-to-day costs are one reason why Americans are dipping into their savings.
3.2% year over year makes it more likely we won't see another interest rate cut until summer. That is the latest news, traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
You know, Grace Point Healthcare is the standard for affordable, comprehensive, and convenient medicine. How? Well, as a direct pay provider, your healthcare is delivered without the red tape of an insurer's guidelines. Smart Care plans make it even more affordable. Now, they start at $69 a month, and you'll get free office visits and free basic labs for an entire year for $69 a month. And there are family plans as well. So it could really make a lot of advantages for you if you were to marry this, per se, with a high deductible insurance plan that you may have at home. Grace Point identifies and treats the root causes of conditions, not just the symptoms. using a comprehensive functional approach. And by usually seeing you the same or next day, you are treated at your convenience. Grace Point Healthcare, affordable, comprehensive, and convenient medicine delivered the old-fashioned way. Main Street in Franklin, 599-6868 to set up an appointment. "38 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. Thank you for joining us here on what is another one of these beautiful days. I mean, 70 degrees here in bucolic Watertown today. What do you got there, Chris? About the same there in Nashville?
Yep, 71 degrees.
71 balmy degrees on the 12th day of March. It's an abundant sunshine. It really was very, very nice.
Beautiful.
You know, I got a one of these text messages from Dan Mandis today. He's on his cruise, wanting to know how life is back in Nashville. And actually, life in Nashville's pretty good today. I mean, it ain't Caribbean nice, but it's pretty nice.
Did he send you a selfie with him and Mickey?
No, because he's not on a Disney cruise. We need to, be honest about that.
Okay, sure he's
All right.
not.
Yeah, sure he's not. Wink, wink. But he was there with Amy, and they were imbibing adult beverages. And if there's ever a guy deserves a vacation, it's Dan Mandis. But trying to make me feel bad about the fact that he was, where down in the Caribbean where it was warm, and he was sitting by the pool. And I thought, well, I can do that here.
That's true. You can.
Not bad. Not bad. And many thanks to the many listeners of this program who yesterday were just very helpful on the Members Nutrition Super Text line and providing us, great advice as to how to get rid of our ant problem here in Studio A in bucolic Watertown. I have been infested by both ladybugs and ants. Now, there's a couple of ladybugs still in the room, but I mean, I didn't get a chance to go down and try some of these remedies that have been sent to us, but I'm still, the infestation is real.
I think the ladybugs kind of let the ants in.
That's probably it. I mean, and I'm telling you, these suckers are fast because, they come across, like they'll come across my keyboard here and I'll go, and I'll try to get them. And boy, they run. They see me coming and they take off. They're really, more difficult to catch than you might imagine. So far, though, I think the count is 15 ants. I've killed 15 ants right here in my little workstation.
Just today?
No, this is total.
Oh, total. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I guess that's not horrible.
Yeah, it could be worse.
It could be a lot worse. I mean, they could really be a whole line of them, going after my Nilla wafers. But so far, the Nilla wafers have not been compromised.
That's what's important.
Yeah, exactly.
The most important thing. Keep my snack drawer.
Yep.
Leave my snack drawer alone, you ants. All right, more stuff from the swamp today. There's been a 2-day series of hearings going on, one in the House, one in the Senate, among asking about the worldwide threats we're facing, and the CIA director's there, as is the FBI director. And the CIA director's had some things to say that are pretty interesting, but I've been very interested in what the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, has had to say about the southern border. They are very concerned about an organization that is smuggling people across the border that has connections with ISIS.
So I want to be a little bit careful how far I can go in open session, but there is a particular network that has where some of the overseas facilitators of the smuggling network have ISIS ties that we're very concerned about, and that we've been spending an enormous amount of effort with our partners investigating. Exactly what that network is up to is something that's, again, the subject of our current investigation.
But there is a network we're concerned about that has facilitators involved in it that have ties to ISIS and other terrorist organizations.
Correct.
Well, I mean, that's very concerning, because the border is wide open, and it's wide open because of the policies of the current administration, and you've got to know. I mean, these terrorist organizations, they prey upon opportunity. And when opportunity presents themselves, they will take care of it, and they will take advantage of it. There's no doubt about it. They will try to take advantage. If there's an organization out there that doesn't have the United States' best interest at heart, that is not taking advantage of the wide open border and the ability to go right across the border undetected. I mean, 1.8 million, probably closer actually when you had to get the unknown gotaways. The known gotaways are 1.8 million. The unknown gotaways probably bring that up to around 2 million. 2 million people coming across the border that never come in contact with law enforcement. And that some bad actors are in that bunch. I mean, I've explained it before, but in case you missed it, let me explain it again. Early in the day, the coyotes bring across the people who want to have contact with the Border Patrol. They want to make their asylum claim. They want to get their ticket, and they want to get into the United States, and they want to be processed. But when they do that early in the morning and the Border Patrol gets all tied up processing people, sometimes by the hundreds, that's when they go upstream or go a little into an out-of-the-way place and have the bad guys cross over. And these folks, don't want to have any entanglements with the Border Patrol. These are the bad guys. And there's about 2 million of them that have come across the border. The so-called gotaways and those are the known gotaways. And how do you say, well, how do we know about them? Well, we see them on cameras, or we see them. We have all kinds of sensors and stuff that can detect movement on the border. So we know they're coming through, but we just don't have the resources to go and get them. Then there's about 20% more. So that brings it up to somewhere around 2 million who we don't know anything about because they're the unknown gotaways. Well, Christopher Wray is right, and he's been sending up the flare for some time now. How many, terrorist organizations or foreign countries are slipping people into the border to do their bidding in America? The Chinese, for example, are absolutely taking advantage of this opportunity. They want to get across the border and just sort of disappear into the fabric of America until Mother China calls them and says, this is what we need you to do. Trust me, it's happening. Trust me, it's happening. In D.C., for example, I mean, you know, I had experiences with the Chinese spies all the time. We had a couple of incidents where they were monitoring what we were doing at Fox News. And one of my trips over to China, I was absolutely monitored by the Chinese folks. I mean, they put a lot of effort into spying on people. And if you could get a bunch of people into spies into the country undetected, wouldn't you, if you were a foreign nation, wouldn't you take advantage of the stupidity we have on the border right now? Absolutely, you would. Also from the border, Justice Samuel Alito has extended a temporary freeze on a decision that would have allowed Texas law enabling local police to arrest illegal migrants to take effect. Now, you know that the state of Texas passed a law that said we're going to arrest people for coming into this country illegally because the federal government is not doing it. Samuel Alito stopped that, said, no, you can't do it, and put a freeze on that effort while it was being adjudicated, and he extended the temporary freeze. The Biden administration asked the Supreme Court earlier this month to prevent the law, SB 4, from taking effect, claiming it would create chaos in the United States. Boy, that's rich. So the Biden administration thinks that enforcing the law would create chaos. What do you think we have right now on the border? That's the chaos. Unbelievable. In response, Alito issued an administrative stay to consider the request, which he extended Tuesday through March 18th. Now, Governor Abbott signed this law, according to Daily Caller, in response to record amounts of illegal crossings, but the Department of Justice sued Texas to prevent its enforcement in January, and that's why it is on hold at Samuel Alito's behest, pending further adjudication. And then there's this, Andrew Cuomo. Remember him, former New York governor, who resigned in disgrace. He slammed the Biden administration on Sunday for causing an unprecedented influx of illegal immigrants, which has overwhelmed officials and the resources of cities such as New York City. This is what he said. This is the worst government blunder I have ever seen in my entire life. He said this during a speech at a Bronx church, referring to the Big Apple's ongoing migrant crisis. Quote, you have the federal government, which is where it starts. It is standing on the border with a sign that says, come to the United States of America and claim asylum. And that's true. Cuomo is speaking truth here, one of the rare times. And 2 million people come, of course, from Venezuela, Honduras, and Guatemala. They get to the border and they say, where do you want to go? And they say, I want to go to New York City. What are you going to say? I want to go to Nevada? So Cuomo condemned New York Governor Kathy Hochul for keeping the migrant problem in the Big Apple. Of course, he doesn't like Hochul, who replaced him, and not urging the rest of New York to share the burden. It is amazing. And again, remember, in New York, they are blaming Governor Abbott for their problems. And I just want to remind you what we talked about yesterday. Governor Abbott has sent about 105,000 migrants to major sanctuary cities via bus. The Biden administration, according to some reporting, has flown 320,000 people to cities all across the nation from the border. People who should not be here getting a lift on taxpayer-paid aircraft to go to major cities around the country. 320,000. There are now way more illegal migrants, illegal immigrants, illegal aliens in this country now than the entire population of Tennessee and then some. It's out of control. And we're going to rue the day that we allowed this to happen. But the Biden administration, it doesn't seem to be willing to stop. They could stop. They could do some things by executive order. And there was a moment where apparently Biden thought about doing it. But the latest reporting out of the White House is Biden thought it over, decided he would do nothing. Just wants to blame Republicans. And we know we absolutely are positive that this was not a problem caused by Republicans. This was a problem that was caused by one man and one man only, and the voters are going to be reminded of it in November. And that person is Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., the President of the United States. 50 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock. You know, the Brass Lantern and Legends Restaurant's owned by Johnny Fleeman, and they're celebrating 35 years serving Middle Tennessee and surrounding areas. And they just want to thank you all for that. And to celebrate the 35 years, they wanted me to tell you about what you can get. Well, basically, what you get at a Brass Lantern or Legends Restaurant is good food at a very reasonable price. Monday, chicken fingers with fries and coleslaw, $8.99. Tuesday, slow cook 8-ounce prime rib and a side, $18.99. Wednesday, 6-ounce choice sirloin with a side for only $8.99. Thursday is hamburger steak dinner, $8.99. Sundays, they have 3 pasta dinners, each of them only $9.99. Remember, for over 35 years, the Brass Lantern and Legends Restaurant has given you authentic, made-from-scratch, delicious recipes at affordable prices. And I hope you enjoy the good food and the service. They want to remind you not to forget the daily lunch specials, which start at a very reasonable $6.99. Also, don't forget to pick up some delicious Johnny Fleeman products at your local grocery store. You're going to enjoy your next visit to a Brass Lantern or Legends restaurant near you.
Another American hostage killed by Hamas. Franklin's soccer coach indicted on rape charges. And some big sports news for Nashvillians as a Titans legend set to be in some new colors. Those stories, 4 o'clock, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
All right, let's take a look at the markets right now. We have a lot of green screens today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 235 points, S&P up 57, NASDAQ up 246. They like something going on with NVIDIA again. But the big story economically today was a very hot inflation report that came down, which raises questions about whether or not interest rates will come down anytime soon. Let's check in with Ty Draper from over at Beacon Capital Management to find out more about that. Hello, Ty.
Hey, Brian. Yeah, you're right. Consumer prices matched the largest increase in February for the last 5 months, and this was the largest increase since last September, and this report could sway Fed officials to put off any decision till summer. Well, that trends against the street's theory of rate reduction starting in June. Some of the highest increase was energy costs, which surged 2.3% heading into the summer travel months. The good news, food costs were flat for the month and shelter costs increased mildly. Bad news, longer and higher interest rates on mortgages, personal loans, and our ever-growing national debt, adding about $1 trillion every 100 days.
All right, Ty, thank you very much. And to find out about all the things that Ty and John and all the good people over at Beacon Capital Management can do for you to help you get ready for retirement by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. 58 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You know, if we've learned anything over the past few years is that we can expect change, and those nearing retirement, well, change can be pretty scary. If you're worried about how things like inflation, when we're talking about, and interest rates will affect your retirement nest egg, use Beacon Capital Management's free retirement savings calculator. It's free, fast, take about 30 seconds to give you some good idea of where you're going, and you'll get your results in a matter of seconds. And if you need a deeper dive, give them a call. 615-488-9303. They can help you make sure that you're on the right path for retirement. It starts again with a phone call to 615-488-9303. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. And as we mentioned, you can learn more at askbeaconnow.com.
It is 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 70 degrees in Nashville. Just a beautiful day on Music Row. Traffic, a complete weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. The Israel Defense Forces announced this morning that E.T. Chen, a 19-year-old Israel American, was killed on October 7th. The IDF says his body is being held by Hamas in Gaza. Chen was one of at least 6 U.S. citizens still thought to be alive there in Gaza. Karen Travers has the latest from the White House.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says with the confirmation of Itai Chen's death, the U.S. now believes there are 5 Americans being held hostage by Hamas. Sullivan on the news of his death.
This hits hard for us, this news. It hits hard for the president, it hits hard for me, it hits hard for a wide number of people who you guys have never heard of in the U.S. government who are working tirelessly for Itai's release.
Sullivan said the administration is working around the clock to secure the release of the remaining hostages.
And this news comes as the U.S. Army's 7th Transportation Brigade has been deployed following President Biden's orders to send troops to create an offshore aid port in Gaza. Right now, back in Tennessee, the Franklin soccer coach accused of raping more than a dozen children has been indicted on 14 counts of rape among dozens of other charges. Camilo Hurtado Campos allegedly recorded himself raping unconscious boys between the ages of 9 and 17, many of those victims Hispanic and drugged during the attacks, according to officials. Campos is accused of grooming many of the children and then inviting them into his home. Evidence of the rapes was found on his phone. A man serving more than 50 years in prison after he was convicted of murder, now getting a new trial. Brian Clark explains why.
Douglas Lewis was convicted of murder in New Jersey in 2021. But a state appeals court now says he's entitled to a new trial because there's doubt as to whether that verdict was unconditionally unanimous, because one juror told the judge they regrettably agreed with the verdict. The local prosecutor's office says it will appeal to the state Supreme Court.
And some big sports news for Titans fans. A legendary Titan and person in the Nashville community officially gone. Running back Derrick Henry has been signed by the Baltimore Ravens on a 2-year deal worth up to $20 million, $9 million guaranteed. The Ravens have been a fantastic rushing team and now add a 2-time rushing champion in King Henry. Henry led the league in rushing attempts last year, was 4th in the AFC in touchdowns with 12. He leaves the Titans as the second leading rusher for the franchise, eclipsing that 8,500-yard mark, about 1,500 behind Eddie George. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, good afternoon. It's hour number 2 of the drive. Hey, I'm glad you're with us. It's a beautiful day. 70 degrees, 71 degrees here in bucolic Watertown. And we're glad that, you're getting home safely and taking advantage of this additional sunshine that we get through that controversial daylight savings time thing. But we're going to still give you good information while you're on the way home so that you'll arrive home and you'll have knowledge. We want to give you knowledge. We'll call it our 2024 update, and we have some new numbers from battleground states. It's important, I think, to look at the battleground states, and I'll tell you in greater detail why I feel that way. But a couple of polls out from thehill.com. Let's look at Georgia. Right now, Trump is leading Biden in the state of Georgia, which is a battleground state, by 4. But when you do the 5-way race or the 5-way matchup, he is leading by 7. And that is outside the margin of error. And that's a good thing. Georgia, battleground state, Trump leading realistically by 7. Then in North Carolina, this comes from TV station WRAL, a real powerhouse news organization in North Carolina, and they have Trump leading Biden by 5. Again, another battleground state. So you got Georgia and North Carolina by 5. All right, so Georgia and North Carolina out of the way. Let's look at the general election. We have one thing to bring you today. The general election poll, which is Trump versus Biden. Trump is leading by 4, but when you do the 5-way race, he leads by 6, which is right on the bubble of being outside the margin of error. So these are good signs. Now, look, I'm looking at these numbers, and I'm not pumping sunshine. I'm telling you, these things are shaping up pretty good. Now, why are the battleground states so important? Well, if you look at the battleground states, there's some states that are always going to be red, some states that are going to be blue. And the way that falls out right now, if you take and award all of the blue states to Biden and all the red states to Trump, the ones that we're pretty sure about, then the electoral count gets to 219 for Trump and 215 for Biden. But if you look at the polls and then assign the battleground states to whoever is leading in those polls, even if it's by a slight amount, guess what? Trump has 293 electoral votes. 293. Biden has 245. That's important because you need 270 to win. And if you assign the toss-up states based on where the polls are right now, then, it looks pretty good for Trump right now. He could come up with 293 would be a virtual landslide if that were to happen. So let's go through one more time just so you can know where we are on all of these battleground states. Here are Real Clear Politics average of polls. Some of these polls have started to move a little more beyond the average, but I'll give you the average. Wisconsin, Trump leads by 1. Arizona, Trump leads by 5.5. Georgia, Trump leads by 6.2. Michigan, Trump leads by 3.6. Pennsylvania, it's tight, but Biden wins by 0.8, but the last 2 polls show Trump winning. North Carolina, and remember, that's an average. North Carolina, Trump wins by 5.5. Nevada, Trump wins by 7.7. And very soon, you're going to have to assign Nevada, and I would say Georgia, to the Trump column. I mean, they may be battleground states, but I mean, those are good, solid numbers for Trump. And these are averages, remember. There are some polls that show higher than that. So that would be, pretty close. I mean, I saw the other day where CNN and their electoral college map, they had Biden losing and Trump winning, more than enough votes. I think it was 272, if I can remember correctly. I'm at my map, the one I look at, and I try to be conservative about this when I put my map together. I have it at 268, just a little short. All right, so there we go. And by the way, today we have elections in several states, and today, after all the votes are counted this evening, I think you'll see that Donald Trump has clinched the nomination. He will be the presumptive nominee at that point. to be coronated at the convention, but he will be the presumptive nominee. Same for Biden. If things go the way it is expected, then Biden will be the presumptive Democrat nominee. Now, that's interesting because is the way I look at it, there are two inflection points for Biden if he wants to jump out. One, when he has secured enough ballots, enough delegates to become the presumptive nominee, then if he wants to get out, he can be the kingmaker. He can decide who's going to be the next president or the Democrat nominee. So he can do that if he were to choose to do that after he clinches. So that's one inflection point. I don't really expect that he's ready. I sort of think that if something's going to happen, he's going to run it all the way to the convention. And by then he'll have even more delegates and even more power within the selection process if he should decide to get out or people convince him that he needs to get out one way or the other. Those are the two inflection points. Trump, he's going to rock right along. There's no doubt, of course, that he will be the nominee of Republicans when they have their convention. The RNC is under new management, as you know, and they are kicking out a lot of people who work there. The Republican National Committee is in the process of cutting as many as 60 staffers just days after likely GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump installed new leadership. The process began yesterday. The cuts are being made across the entire organization, including in the political, communications, and data departments. Vendor contracts are also expected to be cut. There had been speculation about pending cuts as the 2024 presidential race moves to the general election cycle, and Trump campaign looks to cut costs and raise more money to compete with the re-election campaign of Joe Biden. I mean, I'm going to tell you, folks, Biden and the Democrats are raising a ton of money. Now, they'll waste it, some of it, and I don't think a lot of it's going to do any good, but they're not going to go down without a fight, and they'll have the money to fight a good fight. Last week, the RNC voted in favor of installing, as you know, co-chairpersons Michael Whatley and Laura Trump, former President Trump's daughter-in-law. This according to justthenews.com. So there you have that. I mean, things are looking pretty good there, I think, as we look through this election process. I'm a little concerned, though, about what's going on down on the border and the whole use of illegals to inflate the population of places that would be otherwise losing population. Now, remember, we decide, how many electoral votes a state gets based on population. We decide how many House seats are going to be assigned to a state based on population. And, California, New York, post to COVID, they've been losing population. But now with all of the people who are now being moved into places like, California and New York City and New York State and Illinois, all of these states that were losing so many people because people found it difficult to live there. They didn't like the crime. They don't like the taxes. They want to go someplace where they can live their life. I mean, a lot of people found out during COVID they could work anywhere, and it made a lot of sense to work in a state that doesn't have a state income tax. That's why we're picking up population. That's why Florida's picking up population. That's why the state of Texas picking up a lot of population. So to counteract, they were going to lose a lot of House seats. They're going to lose maybe some electoral college votes, but not if you allow the illegal immigrants who go into those cities by the thousands, by the hundreds of thousands, to be counted in the upcoming census. And that is the real, I think, what they're really about here. And I also have concerns that many of the people who've come into this country illegally are somehow going to find their way with an ability to actually vote in a national election. Now, they're not supposed to, but how do you prove it? It's hard to prove. And in many states where they take advantage of things like this, the Democrat states, the blue states, they don't ask too many questions when you come to the polls. In Tennessee, you got to show your driver's license, right? You gotta have voter ID, which I am absolutely for. I don't think it's a problem at all. But in some of these places, the rules a little loosey goosey. In some of these other blue states, because they like to play fast and loose with the election process. So it's going to be very interesting to watch and see how that all develops. But it's look, I don't want you to accuse me of pumping sunshine here, and I do understand the criticism that is often leveled when you read polls a lot. Well, the polls, the polls are not always accurate. Listen, I think that two things are going well right now. Joe Biden's popularity is pretty low. It's at 33% right now. I mean, that only 33% of Americans have a favorable opinion of Joe Biden. That is historically very, very low. So that's good. And I think that there's an enthusiasm gap. That's part of it. The Democrats are not at all very excited about voting for Sleepy Joe, and the Republicans are very enthused to vote for Donald Trump. Despite all of the legal issues and all of that, Republicans are bound and determined. They're going to vote for Donald Trump. They're going to turn out in big numbers. So there are a lot of things. Black voters, this is the amazing thing. Black voters now in larger numbers are saying that they're going to vote for Donald Trump. Hispanic voters, believe it or not, there are a great number of Hispanic voters, more than we've seen in the past, saying they're going to vote for Donald Trump. A lot of things are starting to fall that direction for Donald Trump. Now, if we can do two things. Number one, we've got to make sure that we're doing the same thing that the Democrats are doing with mail-in votes and early voting and ballot harvesting where that is legal. We need to be doing it. We need to do everything we can within the confines of the law to make sure that we're banking as many votes as we can in advance of the election. That's so important. This time around, do not wait. It's very important that you get in early and vote early and make sure that your vote counts. And then the other thing is that we have got to up our game in spotting fraud. And they're very clever. When fraud is finally rooted out, the problem is it's generally rooted out a little too late. I mean, you've got the end of the election, and you've got so many days before the election has to be certified. And if you can't prove it in that window, then you've got problems. We find out a lot of things after that window, but it's got to be within that window before the election is certified. You've got that window to react, and we've got to get a game where we're able to do that. And then I think with the good numbers and the way things are falling, the early voting, and a really strong legal program to help spot the fraud as it is happening in real time, I think I have some optimism. I have some real optimism about this coming election cycle. 20 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. There are 10 premier bridal designers that every woman knows about. They're like the Mercedes or the Louis Vuitton of engagement rings, world-class, iconic quality names like Tacori or Verragio. These designers are really hard to get. Not every jewelry store can get them, and they have to settle for lesser brands or knockoffs. Well, around here, there's only one jewelry store that offers these premium rings, and it's Genesis Diamonds. They're the only one that made the cut that meets the highest standards. Genesis is the only store that's allowed to offer these exceptional brands that women really desire. Other stores are jealous of this and will try to convince you that they are more expensive and that you need to settle for something else that you can afford. But the truth is, Genesis has top quality designer rings for under $2,000. It's not about price. It's about craftsmanship and quality and detail and individuality. So don't compromise. Don't settle. Get her a world-class ring she will be proud to wear. Genesis Diamonds, Green Hill and Cool Springs, also home to the state's largest selection of luxury pre-owned Rolexes.
A Missouri college student missing in Nashville after a night out on Broadway. We'll have today's Money News as well. Those stories 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
There's Mac Morey with all the stories. Good to have you in your seat there, Mac. And a great job on the Derrick Henry analysis. We'll do that again at 5:25 if you missed it. The news, in case you missed it, is that although it's not unexpected, we sort of knew this was going to happen. It's been no big secret, but Derrick Henry has officially signed a contract to go to the Baltimore Ravens for 2 years, and we'll look back at the real accomplishments of Derrick Henry and what he means to this community coming back with Mac Morey's wild world of sports coming up at 5:25. If you missed the earlier edition, it was unexpected and people were caught off guard.
I know, 3:25 people are going, wait, what?
What, we're playing the music too early? No, what's wrong?
Did we fast forward?
Did I change my clock too much?
Was I involved in some kind of time warp, some rift in time? I don't know, but one way or the other, we'll go do it again at our regular time. We just think I think it's important. I mean, this guy's meant so much to this community, and to Titans fans, and we've been rooting, and everybody's been wearing that jersey forever. The big 22, and I think it's important that we stop, and when somebody comes to a community, makes a difference, and it becomes important and sort of a leader within the community, and then they have to go finish out their career somewhere else. I always think it's sort of sad.
It is,
but he's not
absolutely
done yet.
No, he's not.
He's not, and we may actually really rue the day we made that decision. But one way or the other, the decision's been made. And we'll revisit it at 5:25. This is a story that I really I need to explain, and I think it's huge. We are getting real thin in the House of Representatives. The big news that came down this afternoon is that Ken Buck, a Republican from Colorado, will retire from Congress next week. He announced Tuesday a move that will narrow the House GOP's razor-thin majority even further. So Buck, who's become known for breaking from his party on a number of issues, especially the topic of election denialism, announced last year that he would depart the House at the end of his current term, but he expedited the timeline today, saying that it has been an honor to serve the people of Colorado's 4th District in Congress for almost 9 years. I want to thank them for the support and encouragement throughout the years. Today, I'm announcing that I will depart Congress at the end of the week, and I look forward to staying involved in our political process, as well as spending more time in Colorado with my family. I have not been able yet to determine how that will be handled by the state of Colorado, but, it's Colorado, which is a Democrat state with a Democrat governor. I know that. So that'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. Now, why is that important? Well, we started out the year, I think we had like a four vote margin that kept the Republicans in control of the House. That was pretty thin. Well, folks, now it's down to 1. We got a 1 vote margin in the House of Representatives. And we can't, that is about as thin as it gets. We can't afford to lose anybody else. And, I don't mean to be rude here, but it's just a fact of life that, in a traditional 2-year Congress, it's entirely possible you lose some people. A lot of these members are elderly, and things happen. And, just when you're talking about a body of 435 people, and many of them are older, you're likely to lose some people. So I want to look at this and try to study up, make sure I know exactly how this is going to be resolved. But boy, does this put Speaker Mike Johnson in a very tight spot. He can't afford to lose any votes on any measure. So now the Republicans have either got to suck it up and vote in unison in lockstep, like the Democrats do, or we're just not going to get much accomplished. He won't put up things that he's going to lose on. And he just won't. The Speaker of the House has a lot of power in that he decides what goes on the floor and when it goes up. And Democrats can, to some degree, petition stuff to get to the floor, but they got to have a lot of Republican votes to do it. So this is an incredibly concerning news that Ken Buck. Now, he was a moderate. Yes, he was a rhino, and a lot of you will say, well, gosh, goodbye. But there are a lot of things that happen on a day-to-day basis where it's nice to have that extra vote. And now we've got to watch. You should, each day when you get up, before you have your breakfast cereal or you sit down to the biscuits and gravy, you gotta say a little prayer for the health of all Republican members in the House of Representatives. It is now 30 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 71 degrees, sunny in Music City. Forecast traffic report just ahead in 5 minutes. Right now in Nashville, the search for a missing Missouri college student is focused along the Cumberland River today. The Tennessean reports search and rescue boats were launched this morning. Riley Strain went missing after being out on Broadway with his friends at Luke Bryan's bar Friday night. Channel 4's Brendan Tierney with details.
The owner of Luke's 32 Bridge say that the bar is working closely with police. They've handed over security video and other information to help in the search for Riley. His family has also been out here today with their own boat trying to find him. They say that he's pretty easy to spot. He's 6'7", and he was out and about with a group of friends on Friday night. So if anyone happened to see him, they're asked to call Metro Police to help get this family some closure.
Now over to some money news. Daria Albinger.
Stocks soared despite a so-so report on inflation. The Dow rose 236 points and NASDAQ added 246, and the S&P closed up 57 points at an all-time high. Consumer prices picked up last month, a sign that inflation is still a challenge for President Biden's re-election effort, as well as the Federal Reserve. Both are counting on prices easing gradually. The latest consumer price index found otherwise, saying prices rose 0.4% from January to February, up slightly from the previous month's 0.3. Prices were up 3.2% year over year, faster than January's 3.1%. The producer price index will be released on Thursday. It measures prices at the wholesale level before they reach consumers. Usually they move in tandem, but not always. After weeks of testing, the IRS is rolling out Direct File, its first electronic filing system, to taxpayers in 12 states.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Imagine what you could do and how you would feel if you or a loved one who has a lot of pain could get rid of that pain completely. Well, Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley at the Wellness Institute of Nashville want to help you find a pain-free life. Because getting better and feeling healthy is important to Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley, they're freezing cost at 2023 levels. You heard that right. Half off spinal decompression treatment, half off the KT knee machine, and new patients can get a full consultation for just $23. I mean, holding the 2023 pricing, just $23 for new patients. You get an exam, a consultation, x-rays included if needed, or you can bring an MRI report and go over them with the doctor. They're awfully good at finding things that others have missed. Dr. Mitchell will go over your condition, put a game plan together, will get you feeling better. And listen, Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley are experts. Dr. Mitchell studied and practiced all over the world. Dr. Ashley not only has chiropractic experience, but has achieved clinical excellence in holistic healing, ranging from nutrition, cold laser, stress reduction, and more. So call Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley to set up your consultation today at 615-246-5009. I'm Brian Wilson, and I put my stamp of approval on the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Learn more at painisbad.com. It is 38 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Let me clean something up real quick here. I was talking about Ken Buck leaving the Congress. One of the things I learned a long time ago is you always got to double check and see where the numbers are. And again, I apologize because I got it a little wrong. Sometimes you got Democrats that are leaving and sometimes you got some that are out. And basically what I need to tell you is the margin is not at 1. It remains at 2, although in reading the story here today, I'm not exactly clear why that is, but I assume it's because somebody on the Democrat side has recently left as well. But here's the thing. They can only afford to lose 2 votes on party line votes. And it decreases the cushion, according to thehill.com, that GOP lawmakers will have on these partisan issues. Some people are very irritated with Buck for making this decision. That wish they had stayed. Apparently, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, said he was surprised by the news. However, the congressman said he left the Speaker a voicemail 30 minutes before his announcement went public. In an interview with CNN, Buck said this past year has been the worst year of his nearly decade-long tenure in Congress. He said it's the worst year in the 9 years and the 3 months that he's been in Congress. And I'm leaving because I think there's a job to do out there that I want to do. He says he will shift his attention to the 2024 presidential election, which is on its way to being a rematch between Biden and Trump, of course, as we told you. He says, however, he doesn't know where he will land. He says, I don't feel like I have an organization to join, which sort of sounds like he he's going to leave the Republican Party. He says, I'm not running for president, however. Nobody really expected that was going to be the case as well. So I just want to correct the earlier statement. We still have a 2-vote margin, and I'll try to figure out why. But apparently these numbers change. They're always fluid when you have 435 members, and as I said, many of them are very old. Want to spend some time talking about the economy. I have some numbers here that I'd like to share with you. The inflation number went up today to 3.2%. It was hotter than expected. But when you start looking at year to year, like where were we a year ago? Well, the Fed wants it to get down to 2% inflation, and we're at 3.8% year to year. That's the way you have to measure this. 3.8% year to year. So we're basically a full 2 points. Now here's the thing. When inflation went up, it went straight up to 9. I think 9.1 at one point. And then it started coming down and coming down. And then it hit about 4. 3.7, 3.8, and it just leveled out. And it just won't go down. And until you get to 2, the Fed has said that it doesn't want to lower interest rates, which everybody really wants, especially those who are in the real estate and housing markets. They really want interest rates to come back down so the housing industry can get back on its feet. But it also has an impact on credit cards and a whole bunch of stuff. So, until interest rates start to come down, it's not going to get good. And the Fed is now talking about maybe an interest rate cut in June or later. But what if they don't get to 2? Then does it mean that the 2 didn't mean anything? No, it means that they're making a political decision, and they're lowering interest rates to help the current administration. That's what you should read into that. But you have to understand that inflation is cumulative. Let's go back and look at how much things have gone up in some areas since Joe Biden took the office, oath of office in 2021, January 20th. Housing since that time, the cost of housing has gone up 20%. Energy, and that's all forms of energy, has gone up 35%. A new car has gone up in cost, on average, 19%. The insurance for that car has gone up, and insurance in general has gone up 45%. Wow. If you have a car and you need to repair it, and a lot of people can't buy a new car because interest rates are so high, so they're having to keep the old car running. And guess what? Repair of the old car has gone up 28%. All of this since Joe Biden took the oath of office. Now, let's say, I average that out. Let's say it's like around 30% average. The total cost of living has gone up, let's say, just roughly 30%. Have you gotten a 30% raise in pay? No, you haven't. So the thing is, wages, although some wages are up across the country, I don't know what is going on at your house, but I mean, it's not going enough to meet the rate of inflation. And I'm telling you, there's another part to this, and that is that when they raise your salary, that contributes to inflation. I mean, so let's say you work down at the Blivet factory, and you're making blivets every day. It's all very important to have blivets, and a good blivet's hard to find. And so you're making these blivets, and because you decided you could make more money somewhere else, you went to the boss and you said, I think I'm going to have to leave. I can make more money over here. The boss decided to keep you, and he's going to give you a raise so you don't leave. So guess what? That means that the cost of every blivet has just gone up to cover your salary. And so, the blivets are more expensive. And then because blivets are more expensive and everything else is more expensive in every other arena that does business, and all the goods and services are going up, then, you need another raise. It's called a wage inflation spiral. I'm not an economist, but I'm telling you, I know that the wage inflation spiral is a difficult thing. And I think that's probably what's causing the problem right now. But I mean, this is bad stuff. And remember, we're in an election year right now, so you would think that this would really hurt Biden, and it is. 61% of those surveyed in a recent survey said that Joe Biden is mostly responsible for the failed economy. His policies are being looked at as the problem. So inflation came in hotter today. This is not an insignificant thing. Here's another story at it from CNBC. Inflation rose again in February, keeping the Federal Reserve on course to wait at least until the summer before starting to lower interest rates. The Consumer Price Index, a broad measure of goods and services, increased 0.4% for the month and 3.2% from a year ago, Labor Department's Bureau of Labor Statistics reported. The monthly gain was in line with expectations, but the annual rate was slightly ahead of the 3.1 forecast by the Dow Jones Consensus. So there you go. And again, you talk about that 61% number. 61% believe that Biden is mostly responsible for the failed economy. Here's another 61% statistic for you. 61% of renters worry they'll never be able to own a home. No matter how hard I work, I'll never be able to afford a home I really love. This is a part of a survey conducted by the Harris Poll Thought Leadership Practice, found that most Americans still dream of owning a home. The survey found that more than 60% don't think they will ever be able to. Another 42% believe that no matter how hard they work, they will never own a home they really love. Most Americans still dream about owning their home, but over 60% don't think they'll be able to do that. A 2,047-person survey shows that while 81% of adults would like to own a home in the future, 61% don't think they'll ever be able to accomplish it. So these numbers are not good. 50% said high mortgage interest rates were the biggest obstacle they faced in owning a home. The other top reasons preventing Americans from owning homes are poor credit, not enough housing available, simply not knowing how to do it, according to the survey. And most Americans don't think that the housing market will change for the better in the years to come. 71% worry the market will only worsen in the future. Now a 30-year fixed mortgage is hovering around 7%, according to Mortgage Daily News. Redfin estimates that 16% of homes are affordable for the typical American household. So, golly, I mean, you know, it really is. It is the American dream. And it's so hard to think about getting into a home when the cost, and the thing here in Nashville, we're sort of in a bubble. And one of the things that's interesting is, houses are not selling as fast as they once were. The number of houses that are on the market are up. We looked at this the other day. But what's really interesting about Nashville is if you own a home in Nashville right now, the value of your home is still going up. In other words, they aren't selling any homes, but the value of homes have not gone down in this unusual market. You would think, you know, they would have in a time when many homes are not going up for sale and not many home sales are being completed. But no, here in Nashville, if you own a home, you're doing okay. That's the good news. The bad news is if you don't own a home, it's getting really, 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 really hard to get into a new home. All right. Looking at some more numbers here. Talking about prices for key household purchases like gas, milk, eggs, and appliances are lower than a year ago. Inflation is down while unemployment has remained below 4%. But the prices for common grocery items remain above what they were in January 21. I mean, when you look at the long term, you're not better off under a Biden economy. A stick of butter costs nearly $1 more per pound than when Biden entered office in January 21st. It used to be in 21, it was $3.64 a pound. Now it's $4.63 a pound, a 27% increase. Boneless chicken breast has increased in price 26% since 2021. It was once $3.26 a pound. It's now $4.11 a pound. White bread per pound is 30% more expensive, up to $2.01 per pound in February versus $1.55 per pound in January of 21. White sugar's gone up, cost per pound from 68 cents to 98 cents in the last 3 years. That is, my friends, a 44% increase. And anything that has sugar in it, it goes up as well. Food prices are rising for several reasons, including ongoing supply chain issues, the smallest cattle inventory in 73 years, and an avian flu outbreak that affected poultry supplies and sent the cost of chicken and eggs skyrocketing, and a worldwide grain deficit. I hadn't even heard about that. That is the result of the prolonged conflict in Ukraine, this according to the Fox Business Report. All right, there you have it. How's that Bidenomics working out for you? I know today, Cabana wife, she took a little break during work today and ran some groceries. 2 bags, $122.
Ooh.
I know. Whew. And not much in it. They're pretty scrawny bags, I'll tell you that for sure. Must be those Nilla wafers. It's 50 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You're in the market for a pole barn. The two brothers that run Stoltzko are the two guys you need to be talking to. Exceptional quality, craftsmanship, and fair prices. They can build a new pole barn to your specifications with your needs in mind. That is the Stoltzko difference. You can use pole barns for all kinds of things. It can function as a classic tool and work barn, a garage, or even a place to live. Flexibility is key. Now, what they do is they combine the classic post-frame barn look with the reliability of modern materials and techniques to give you a finished barn that will stand the test of time. They don't scrimp on quality. They don't cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. So do me a favor. Go to their website, stoltzco.com, STOLTZCO.com. Take a look at some of the things they've done for other people, and then you're going to want to give them a call. Here's the number. 615-622-5992. Stoltzco.com, where great customer service is affordable and you get quality workmanship. Again, once again, that's Stoltzco.com.
Testimony from former special counsel Robert Hur on the President Biden classified documents case. A Franklin soccer coach accused of raping children charged. More aid to Ukraine and drugs in Tennessee. Those stories headed your way. 5 o'clock, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Well, in fact, we'll talk after the news with a little bit more about this Robert Hur testimony. This is the guy who decided that Joe Biden should not be prosecuted over those classified documents he had in the garage next to the Corvette. And the pretty interesting testimony today. We'll give you the complete rundown, including a spectacular soundbite from Jim Jordan, who says that there are 8 million reasons why Joe Biden kept those documents. It's all straight ahead right here on The Drive in the next hour. 4:58.
Five o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Currently 70 degrees in Nashville. Traffic, complete weather forecast coming up 5 minutes. The House Judiciary Committee today listened to 5 hours of testimony from former special counsel Robert Hur to explain his investigation into President Joe Biden's handling of classified documents. Republicans slammed Hur for not bringing criminal charges. Democrats accused him of including superfluous language about Biden's mental state. White House counsel spokesman Ian Sams spoke to reporters after the conclusion of the hearing.
This special counsel, who, has spent 5 hours with the president, used his report to make a patently false claim that the president somehow doesn't remember when his son died. The transcript is now available for every American to see, for all the media to see, and you can see that the president remembers exactly the day his son died.
Sams continued saying, quote, "It's time to move on. House Republicans try to make it a big deal. They want to attack the president politically. They're making it very obvious that they're trying to help the former president, and it's a failure." Right now in Tennessee, the Franklin soccer coach accused of raping more than a dozen children has been indicted on 14 counts of rape among dozens of other charges. Camilo Hurtado Campos allegedly recorded himself raping unconscious boys between the ages of 9 and 17, many of those victims Hispanic and drugged during those attacks. Police say that Campos is accused of grooming many of these children and then inviting them to his home where he drugged and raped them. Evidence of those rapes was found on his phone. In the nation's capital, the United States sending a new $300 million security assistance package to Ukraine, ammunition, weapons, equipment. The White House says the money comes from savings made during negotiations with weapons makers on previous aid packages. Karen Travers with the latest.
Before meeting with the leaders of Poland, President Biden spoke about the $300 million security assistance package the U.S. is sending to Ukraine.
The package includes munitions and rounds to help Ukraine hold the line against Russia's brutal attacks for the next couple weeks.
The president continued to push Congress to pass the national security bill that includes $60 billion for Ukraine.
We must act before it literally is too late.
Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
Crime in Tennessee. A man was arrested last week after his being found with copious amounts of drugs in his vehicle. Youth Services were investigating the overdose of a 5-year-old child. They had a search warrant. They went through 27-year-old Salim Kadumansane's car and found large amounts of heroin, methamphetamine, crack cocaine, and suspected counterfeit fentanyl pills. They also found a lot of cash, 2 rifles, a shotgun, 2 pistols. He remains in custody on a $191,000 bond. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It is 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Hour number 3 of the drive on this pretty nice day, March 12th. Temperatures got up into the 70s. Now they're starting to cool off a little bit as the sun starts to set. It is so beautiful that Cabana Wife is out mowing the yard.
Oh, doing your job for you, huh?
Well, no, I mow most of the yard. We got about a 2-acre spread here, and I mow most of the yard. But I don't know, can you hear the mower in the background?
Nope. No, I don't hear it.
You know how come you can't? Because I got the gate open.
Oh, there it is. Yeah,
Now
you
hear
turn
it,
that off.
right?
I can hear it.
Can you hear it in the background? Let me start. Yeah, she's out there mowing. Well, anyway, the reason that's happening is because she mows the little Grogu's garden.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I mow the rest of it. And so I was supposed to have the mower out ready to go.
And you failed to do that.
I forgot. So, I mean, it's like I need a list is all I'm saying. I need a list. I can say this because I know she's not listening right now because I know what she's doing. She's mowing the yard. So, every day it's like there are things that I'm supposed to get accomplished, but I get told this at like, I don't know, 07:30 when I'm just still groggy and hadn't had my first cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you just tell me, can you just leave me a list? And I don't ever get a list, but anyway, I'm sure there'll be a conversation about it when I get home. This is what married life is all about. Trying to remember the list, and I'll tell you somebody who's got memory problems about lists though. It's not me, it's Joe Biden. See how I did that?
Nice.
I'm going to tell you about what happened on Capitol Hill today with regard to the hearing with Robert Hurt. Now, Robert Hurt is the guy who was the special counsel investigating Biden's not stolen, but I guess they were stolen. Classified documents that were in the house there with the Corvette garage and all over. He had documents stashed everywhere, and the guy who decided ultimately not to bring any charges against him. So this was going to be a hard hearing anyway for Robert Hurt. On one hand, the Democrats are mad at him because he talked about how Biden was a man who had memory issues, and they didn't like that. They thought that was gratuitous and unnecessary. And the Republicans are upset because he didn't go forward with the prosecution of the president while they are prosecuting Donald Trump. But as I go through all this, you're going to love the sound, but hang on to the end. Because the kicker to this story is just unbelievable. You're just simply quite not, well, it has to do with Biden making car noises and telling the story about a man who lost his penis. So, I mean, how's that for a tease? Stick around for that, all right? I promise you, I will get it all in. Let's start here with Jim Jordan, the committee chairman, and his opening statement to sort of kick things off.
Mr. Hurt produced a 345-page report. But in the end, it boils down to a few key facts. Joe Biden kept classified information. Joe Biden failed to properly secure classified information. And Joe Biden shared classified information with people he wasn't supposed to. Joe Biden broke the law. But because he's a forgetful old man who would appear sympathetic to a jury, Mr. Hurt chose not to bring charges.
In his opening statement, Robert Hurt was preemptive. He wanted to make sure that he took on the issue of Biden's memory problems, which were mentioned in his final report before the Democrats came after him.
The evidence and the president himself put his memory squarely at issue. We interviewed the president and asked him about his recorded statement. Quote, "I just found all the classified stuff downstairs," end quote. He told us that he didn't remember saying that to his ghostwriter. He also said he didn't remember finding any classified material in his home after his vice presidency. And he didn't remember anything about how classified documents about Afghanistan made their way into his garage. My assessment in the report about the relevance of the president's memory was necessary and accurate and fair. Most importantly, what I wrote is what I believe the evidence shows and what I expect jurors would perceive and believe. I did not sanitize my explanation, nor did I disparage the president unfairly. I explained to the Attorney General my decision and the reasons for it. That's what I was required to do.
All right. Then Democrats tried to make the case with it that the president, the sitting president of the United States, Joe Biden, had been exonerated in this report But her was having none of that.
I need to go back and make sure that I take note of a word that you used, exoneration. That is not a word that
I'm
appears
going
in
to
the
continue
report, and
with
that's
my
not part of my
questions.
task as a
I'm going to
prosecutor.
continue with my
The
questions. I
judgment
know
that I
that the
received,
term.
I ultimately reached
I know
related
that
to whether
the term.
sufficient evidence existed such that the likely
You
outcome
you
would be a
exonerated him.
conviction.
I know
I
that
did
the
not
term
exonerate him.
willful
That word does not appear in
retention
the
has a.
report,
Mr. Hur, it's my time.
She was getting killed, so she just kept talking. Now, here is the highlight of the hearing, and this is quite a long soundbite. Jim Jordan, the committee chairman, had enough finally, and he just sort of went through a whole litany of questions to sort of get to the real bottom of why Joe Biden wanted to keep these documents. It had to do with a book deal and his ego.
Mr. Hur, why did he do it? Why did Joe Biden, in your words, willfully retain and disclose classified materials? I mean, he knew the law. Been in office like 50 years. 5 decades in the United States Senate, chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, 8 years as vice president. He got briefed every day as vice president. He's been in the Situation Room. In fact, you know he knew the rules because you said so on page 226. President Biden was deeply familiar with the measures taken to safeguard classified documents. And Joe Biden told us he knew the rules. Mr. Armstrong said this earlier. Joe Biden was deeply familiar with it. You're exactly right, because he told us when Jack Smith goes after President Trump, Joe Biden says, how could this happen? What data was in those documents that could compromise sources and methods? It's irresponsible. So Joe Biden knew the rules. You know he knew the rules. And Joe Biden told us he knew the rules. So, Mr. Hur, why did he break them?
Congressman, the conclusion as to exactly why the president did what he did is not one that we explicitly address in the report. The report explains my decision to the Attorney General that no criminal charges were warranted in this manner.
I think you did tell us. I think you told us, Mr. Hur. Page 231, you said this. President Biden had strong motivations. That's a key word. We're getting to motive now. President Biden had strong motivations to ignore the proper procedures for safeguarding the classified information in his notebooks. Why did he have strong motivations? Because, next word, because he decided months before leaving office to write a book. To write a book. That was his motive. He knew the rules. He broke them because he was writing a book. And you further say, and he began meeting with the ghostwriter while he was still vice president. There's the motive. Mr. Hur, how much did President Biden get paid for his book?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure if that information appears in the report.
It sure does. There's a dollar amount in there. You remember?
I don't. It may be $8 million. If that's
$8 million. Joe Biden had 8 million reasons to break the rules. Took classified information and shared it with the guy who was writing the book. That's why he did. He knew the rules, but he broke them for $8 million in a book advance. But you know what? It wasn't just the money. Joe Biden, here's this page 231, very next page. Joe Biden, in your report, Joe Biden viewed his notebooks as an irreplaceable, contemporaneous record of the most important moments of his vice presidency. He'd written this all down for the book, for the $8 million. And the next thing you say in your report is, quote, such a record would buttress his legacy as a world leader. You know what this is? It wasn't just the money. It wasn't just $8 million. It was also his ego. Pride and money is why he knowingly violated the rules. The oldest motives in the book, pride and money. You agree with that, Mr. Hur? You wrote it in your report.
That language, and it does appear in the report, and we did identify evidence supporting those assessments.
You also had another interesting statement in your report. You said Joe Biden, I want to make sure I get this right, viewed himself as a man of presidential timber. Remember that statement, Mr. Hur?
I believe that does appear in the report, at least in the executive summary.
I think this is interesting, because here's the scary part. Page 200. I said this earlier in my opening statement. Page 200. Joe Biden, this is a quote, Joe Biden risked serious damage to America's national security when he shared information with his ghostwriter. Shared it with his ghostwriter, the guy who was helping Joe Biden get $8 million. And oh, by the way, Mr. Hur, What did that ghostwriter do with the information Joe Biden shared with him on his laptop? What did he do after you were named special counsel?
Chairman, if you're referring to the audio recordings that Mr. Zwanitzer created of his conversations with
Exactly
Mr. Biden,
what I'm referring to.
He slid, if I remember correctly, he slid those files into his recycle bin on his computer.
Wow. You know, if only Jim Jordan had been the prosecutor, that would have been a great closing argument before a jury, wouldn't it? Well, listen, it's a mess. Very quickly, the real question comes down to, okay, all of these documents were in places where they were not secure. And in the intelligence community, when you have insecure documents, you have to assume that that information has been compromised. So the question was asked, are we doing an assessment of what kind of damage might have been done by these documents being, not safely stored?
Since the release of the report, to your knowledge, has the Justice Department started to analyze a damage assessment of what may have been disclosed by these documents being mishandled and any ongoing national security risks from the inappropriate storage and retention of the documents?
Congresswoman, my understanding is that such a damage assessment is underway in coordination and cooperation with the members of the intelligence community.
All right. So as promised, the transcript of all of these interviews, there's I think 5 hours over 2 days with the current president of the United States are a hoot. And it shows you what they were struggling with to try to get information out of Joe Biden, because he's an old man and he wanders off topic very easily. They were trying to find out when the documents might have ended up in the garage, and they were asking questions about, was it when the Corvette was out at the Jay Leno show? Or he said, oh, it was in and out for a bunch of reasons. And it drove me crazy because I wanted to drive it. And the prosecutor, the person who was querying the president, said, got it, makes sense, beautiful car, and then tried to get back to asking him questions. Biden then took off on a long rant. The worst part said that I couldn't drive it outside the driveway. It's a long driveway, so I'd get to the bottom of the driveway, tack it up to about $4,000. Then he made car noises. I guess I don't. And then laughed. And Biden then began talking about cars again before being interrupted by her. Said, "Sir, I'd love to hear more about this, but I do have a few more questions I'd like to get through." That's the way to handle it. However, Biden just ignored him and continued to ramble on about cars before her finally said, okay, let's launch into the next subject, which relates to the Penn Biden Center. He got him back on track. So her said, so now let's talk about the Naval Observatory. You've been living there for 8 years. So at the end of your vice presidency, what kind of papers, documents, or files were at the Naval Observatory as you were preparing to leave and move out? Biden... Get ready. Biden then launched into a long-winded story talking about waiting for bar exam results and working for a law firm. And this is a quote. And this poor kid is down a 100-foot vessel chimney scraping the hydrogen bubbles off the inside. I don't know what he's talking about. They were made to shut the plant down once every, about 8 months or 6 months or a year, whatever it is. And he was wearing the wrong pants, the wrong jeans, and a spark caught fire and got in the containment vessel, and he lost part of his penis and one of his testicles, and he was 23 years old.
Good grief.
This is the president of the United States telling us some kind of bizarre, lock-winded story. Her finally interrupted Biden, saying, sir, so the material that you remember having again, trying to get him to talk about what was going on at the Naval Observatory. This is like having a conversation with your very, very, very old great-grandfather. And you can't keep him on topic. Did you bring classified material with you from the West Wing to the Naval Observatory or to the Lake House? And then he went off on another tangent about a trip to Mongolia. I went to Mongolia. Great pictures. I unfortunately embarrassed the hell out of the leader of Mongolia. So we're out there in the middle of nowhere, and they're looking up on a hill, and he starts telling it all began in a small little town in southern Delaware. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And one wonders, as we see this transcript, there's got to be a videotape. We must have the videotape 21, make it 22 past the hour now. You know, D.T. McCall, we talk about them all the time. 5 convenient locations here in Middle Tennessee, Carthage, Lafayette, Lebanon, Cookeville, Franklin. Well, they got a big sale coming up March 22nd through the 30th. And if you've been thinking about buying a new appliance or new things for the home, this is the time to take advantage of it. All kinds of special things on sale. They got appliances on sale. Amish handcrafted All-American mattresses on sale. These are Dutchcraft mattresses. I have one. I love it. They got a scratch and dent appliance on sale. And then we have other appliances that are not scratched and dent that you can get in. And then, boy, if you need a mower, this is the time to take action. They got their zero-turn mowers on. Good prices. I tell you, I have a Cub Cadet mower, and I love that thing. So, again, remember, they've been around for more than 100 years here in Middle Tennessee, and that's because they have a reputation for treating people right. Find out about their 5 convenient locations and all the things they can do for your home. Just go to dtmccalls.com.
New aid to Ukraine bills in Tennessee passing and failing in General Assembly, and the former president making promises to January 6th attendees if he's elected again. Those stories at the bottom of the hour at 5 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
It's time for Mac Morey's wild world of sports, the round 2, because we did an earlier round as well. And because we're running a little short of time, I'm just going to get right to it, because there's big news today. Yeah, the audience will, the standing outside will just have to wait for their applause. Big news today because it's no big surprise, but Derrick Henry has now signed a 2-year deal to go play for the Ravens. And this is this is a sad moment for people who've been following the Titans for many years because they love King Henry.
I mean, he's one of the greatest Tennessee Titans to ever play on the football field, and forget the football field. I mean, the philanthropy that he did in Nashville and the 2All Foundation, just helping kids and children, whether they're disabled or whether they're, maybe not financially well off or living in a bad part of town. I mean, he helped so many kids here in Nashville and around the United States, raising so much money. And he did it on the football field year in and year out with consistency. I mean, he came to this franchise, Brian, when they were just in flux. They didn't have an identity. They didn't know where they were going. They didn't have a quarterback that was the leader of the team. They had just fired a head coach. Mike Vrabel wasn't quite there yet. I mean, there was just so many things happening in Nashville, and Derrick Henry kind of put everyone to rest, gave everyone a sigh of relief because you know what? No matter what, we have the best running back in the league in number 22 who's going to carry the football with some sort of vigor and passion that can't be imitated and that we have not seen maybe ever before. And that's with guys like, Chris Johnson and Eddie George running the football here in Nashville. Derrick Henry is right there and maybe above some of those names. What a fantastic career. And finds himself now in Baltimore. And it's one of those things where it's sad because I think it is better for both franchises. It's good for the Baltimore Ravens. They needed a power back. They're a running football team. The Titans are in this transition mode. New head coach, brand new GM as well, just in his second year with the franchise. They're going a pass-first aerial attack offense. Derrick Henry, age 30 now, not really trying to change his way of playing, his style of football. He's a running back. I mean, that's what he does.
He's just a beast is what he is.
He's a beast. He breaks tackles, but he's not a 3-down back. 3rd and 5, 3rd and medium, 3rd and long. You're not going to find Derrick Henry as a useful, dynamic, versatile piece. And they got one in Tony Pollard, 26 years old, from the Dallas Cowboys. But so good for Derrick Henry. Obviously a bittersweet moment, though, for Titans fans all around. You can expect Derrick Henry to be on a competitive football team, though. This was a Ravens team that was in the AFC Championship game, and they're pretty much top 5 rushing attack year in and year out. And Lamar Jackson, the best quarterback with his legs, now gets a running back who is a star, a premier running back, because he's had a carousel of guys in the backfield with him, and now they've got a Heisman backfield, a Heisman Trophy winner in Lamar Jackson, and, of course, at Alabama with Derrick Henry. So it's going to be fun stuff for Baltimore, bittersweet for Titans fans, but again, turning a page to a new style of football, and this is what should have happened. If you asked me, you probably should have maybe traded him a year or two ago. I know, crazy to say, but because you could have gotten something and now you don't get anything, but that's okay. Derrick Henry, great time as a Titan. He'll be in the Ring of Honor. He'll be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame as well. Yep. Hopefully he retires as a Titan. And, I know this may be tough to say, and I know maybe all Titans fans won't feel this way as he goes to an AFC opponent. I hope he goes and wins. I really do. He's a competitive guy. He plays football for the right reasons. He wants to hold up a trophy.
Yeah, and we we wish him well, even though we hate to see him go. And I guess the thing is that when you have somebody who has meant so much to this town and this community and this football team for so long, you can't help but be a little sad. I'm surprised there's not a big going away party or some kind of. Well, the Titans really should give him something on the way out the door to commemorate what he has meant to this team, don't you think?
Yeah, it's just rare you see that. I'm sure it'll happen on the back end. I know. Yeah, when he retires.
Or maybe when the Ravens come to Nashville to play, maybe they'll do something there before the game.
Absolutely. And they don't play this season, but if they play next year, there will be a video, of course, that'll be playing. There will be a huge tribute, standing ovation. And again, he'll be in the Ring of Honor. His jersey may be retired as a Tennessee Titan, and he'll be remembered forever as one of the greatest guys to wear the two-tone blue.
All right, we got to leave it right there. Time for the news. Here's Mac Morey with all of that. It's 5:31.
I'm Mac Morey with your top story. 69 degrees, partly sunny on Music Row. Traffic report, weather forecast in 5 minutes. New U.S. military aid will be going to Ukraine. The White House says the money comes from savings made during negotiations with weapons makers on previous aid packages. Karen Travers.
The U.S. is sending a new $300 million security assistance package to Ukraine. It includes ammunition, weapons, and equipment. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says this new aid is possible because of what he called unanticipated cost savings in contracts the Pentagon negotiated to replace equipment the U.S. has already sent to Ukraine.
It turns out we negotiated well. Those contracts came in under budget, so we have a modest amount of funding available.
Local legislation, a bill that would have raised the minimum wage to $20 has failed in the General Assembly. House Bill 2602, Senate Bill 2646 was introduced by Democratic Representative Gloria Johnson out of Knoxville and Democratic Representative Senator Sarah Kyle out of Memphis. Just a couple months ago, January 31st, Tennessee, one of 20 states that have a minimum wage set at the federal minimum, according to the U.S. Department of Labor. And this comes as a bill that would make street racing a felony has advanced in the General Assembly. Former President Donald Trump again claiming he will free what he calls the wrongly imprisoned January 6th hostages if he's reelected. Andy Field tells us most of those behind bars were either convicted or pleaded guilty.
For the second day, Donald Trump has said he would pardon the, quote, January 6 hostages being wrongfully imprisoned. But the Justice Department says those convicts put themselves in jail. 770 of them pleaded guilty to attacking the Capitol. Courts convicted another 180 attackers. Mr. Trump has not made clear why any of them deserve to be free after either admitting to or being convicted of violence.
And that is the latest news, weather, and traffic next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Busy bee when you need heat or cold AC. And you know what? It was like when I got up this morning, 26 degrees. I need a little heater? Yeah. Day goes on. Guess what? 70 degrees. Do I need to turn on the AC? Maybe just a little bit. I'm telling you, that's the kind of that's kind of time we're in right now. And you need both sides of your HVAC system working perfectly. And if it's not, then do what I do. Call the number 775-7833. The folks at Busy Bee will come right over and get you back up and running in very short order. Now, the real trick here, the way you keep all your systems running the way they're supposed to, is you become a member of the Beehive Club. $99 is where it starts. And for that, you get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one at the beginning of heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing, no overtime charges 24/7, and 10% off all repairs. It's a good deal. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. So for satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com. It's 38 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. Mac Morey in the newsroom, and Chris Weber, as always, doing a fantastic job over there, pushing all the blinky buttons. You would never know anything ever goes wrong because he just takes care of it. You know, the biggest trick in broadcasting is to cover your mistakes.
What mistakes?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'll tell you what, when Chris is in the chair, there aren't many mistakes, that's for sure. We are coming to you from our studio in bucolic Watertown, where I'm in trouble today because I forgot to pull out the mower. The wife had to pull the mower out of the garage, and so there's big trouble there. And then I'll hear about this tonight because I forgot. My fault, I forgot. But I've got so many things to distract me right now. You know, I've got this story out here where apparently Joe Biden is talking in a transcript about a guy who lost his penis and his testicles.
Oh, my.
I know. I mean, we got that. And then on top of all that, I am still fighting a tremendous infestation of ants here in the studio. They are taking over in my studio, and I don't know where they're coming from. I can't find them. So I'm going to have tomorrow, no matter what's on my list of honeydews, I've got to go get some ant repellent.
Yeah, I got to work on that for sure.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this: they're tricky. These are smart ants. These aren't your regular run of the mill ants. It's like I see one going across the table here or on my keyboard, and I start to mash it, and they I don't know, they're like flies. They see it coming, they take off. They're very fast. These are skittish ants.
So if I see you start to be dragged away from the microphone, I'll know it's the ants that have taken control.
They're taking control. It take a lot of ants to drag this carcass off, I'll tell you for sure. Not to say it's impossible, but it take a lot. Let's see. We got some news from around the world. I talked to you yesterday about Haiti, and I really do have a special place in my heart for the people of Haiti, because I've been there a couple of times and I've had some really wonderful and warm relationships from that island nation. But it is a hellhole, and the people of Haiti deserve so much better than what they've got. And apparently, we sent in a bunch of troops there the other day to secure our embassy in Port-au-Prince because the gangs have taken over. From NBC News, Haiti's leader to resign as gangs overrun the country. A notorious gang leader known as Barbecue, well, that's a good name for a gang leader, had threatened to carry out more violent acts if Prime Minister Ariel Henry did not step down. The embattled Prime Minister of Haiti, the Caribbean country whose capital has been overwhelmed by violent gangs, said Tuesday that he would resign. In a short speech posted to Facebook, Ariel Henry said his government would dissolve once a transitional council has been set up, following a week of systematic looting and destruction of public buildings and private buildings. It hurts us and it has revolted us, Henry said. He said, Haiti needs peace. Haiti needs stability. Haiti needs sustainable development. Haiti needs to rebuild democratic institutions. The timing of the interim government remains unclear, but he's out. I'll tell you, this is a country that's been run by despots and thugs forever. And if you ever do get somebody in there who's not a despot or a thug, he's a crook. And they steal from the people. I mean, it's really just sad that Haiti has gone through all the things it could go. And as I mentioned yesterday, if you ever need to see an example of where the kind of government that you have matters, look at the island of Hispaniola. Half of it is the Dominican Republic, half of it is Haiti. The DR is a tropical paradise, and Haiti is a hellhole. The difference, the kind of government that they have. So there you have it, Haiti going through real problems, and the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. The people there are so poor. I remember, just a quick story, I remember the first time I went there, there'd been sort of an embargo in place because they were trying to force the Haitian leaders to allow Aristide to come back in as president. He'd been in exile in the United States. And so when that finally happened, the people had been under some duress for some time. And I decided one day that I would take my camera crew and go out into the country away from Port-au-Prince and talk to some of the people and get a different perspective. And I remember meeting a woman called, I think her name Magali, I want to say is her name. And I met her, And she started to show me her little hut, which was really, I mean, it was like a couple of pieces of corrugated metal strung together in a way that you had a little sleeping area with a cover on top of it. It was just a hovel is what it was, just the poor thing. And I asked her through a translator, I said, what happened to all the stuffing in your mattress? She pulled it out to sell it because it's one of the only things she had, and she restuffed it with straw because she needed the money. And then I said, oh, are these your cooking utensils? Yes, they're mine. I did not steal them. I own them. She was very proud of this broken pot with no handle that she owned. That was probably her most prized possession. You really don't have any idea how poor a country is until you go out there and you see somebody who has to sell the stuffing out of their mattress and whose most prized possession is a pot that has no handle. That's what they were dealing with there in Haiti. So it is an incredibly poor country. I'll never forget that. And when I went back during the earthquake, I looked her up, by the way. I found her. I couldn't remember. I wasn't driving the first time when I met her, and I had a rough sense of where the little village was, but I was able to find it, and I pulled in and asked somebody where, and they went and found her, and they brought her out to me. And she remembered that day very vividly because it wasn't every day that a camera crew came out to the sort of the Badlands, the sort of the outer lands of Haiti, where people are so incredibly poor. Other news, Boeing is in big trouble, according to CNN. You'd think Boeing's already miserable 2024 couldn't get any worse, but on Monday, a 787 Dreamliner plunged suddenly mid-flight, injuring dozens of passengers. A pilot said for some reason, and it's not clear what happened, there was a control issue. He temporarily lost control of the aircraft. He did recover and land safely, but it's not clear what caused the flight from Australia to New Zealand to fall so dramatically. They're calling it a technical event. Boeing said it's working to gather more information, but it is really, really, really tough for Boeing right now. Company's nonstop streak of bad news began the first weekend of the year when an Alaska Airlines 737 MAX lost a sort of a window off the side of the plane just after takeoff. A preliminary investigation revealed that Boeing did not have the boats properly installed. In fact, not installed at all. The incident resulted in a temporary nationwide grounding of certain 737 MAX jets, followed by congressional hearings. Between lawsuits, potential fines, and lost business, Boeing could lose billions more dollars from the blowout. In February, a United Airlines 737 MAX reported the flight controls jammed as the airplane landed in Newark. The NTSB is investigating. Then last week, Boeing got more bad news. They said that Boeing has not yet provided the company's record documenting steps taken on the assembly line for the door plug replacement on the Alaska Airlines jet. And apparently Boeing's reason for not being able to provide the records is they can't find them. So, and then you have this other story, which I think is raising a few eyebrows. I don't know. I just throw it out here. A former Boeing employee who is known for raising concerns about the firm's production standards was found dead in the U.S. His name was John Burnett, worked for Boeing for 32 years, retired in 2017. In the days before his death, he'd been giving evidence in a whistleblower lawsuit against the company. And he was found dead on the 9th of March, 3 days ago, and police are investigated and initially reported as a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He had worked for the U.S. plane giant for 32 years until his retirement in 2017. He was a quality manager at the North Charleston plant where they made the 787 Dreamliner. And Mr. Barnett told the BBC under pressure, workers had been deliberately fitting substandard parts to aircraft on the production line. He also had uncovered serious problems with oxygen systems, which could mean 1 in 4 breathing masks would not work in an emergency. He said soon after starting work in South Carolina, he had become concerned that the push to get new aircraft built meant the assembly process was rushed and safety was compromised, something the company has denied. But he is now dead, and initially, at least, police are saying he died from a self-inflicted wound, but the investigation continues on. I don't know what to think about that. I mean, it does raise a few questions, but again, how do you prove something like that? In first appearance, police say it had all the markings of something being self-inflicted, but who knows? In a situation where when a company is out to lose billions and billions of dollars, and you're about to point the finger at people who are specifically responsible, certainly does raise a few eyebrows, doesn't it? Sounds like a movie almost. All right, so anyway, we'll continue to watch that story to see what else develops. Right now, let's call it 50 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I want you to be honest with me. Are you happy with your weight? Well, I was decidedly not happy with mine. I started regaining a lot of the weight that I lost last year, and I decided to do something about it. Now, I've never taken on a weight loss client before, but I am impressed with the program that Jamie and Carly over at Restoration Wellness Med Spa in Lebanon developed for me. You see, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. They took a look at my history, my lifestyle, and suggested an approach that is starting to show real results. Amazingly, I'm not hungry, and that's a big deal. Beyond that, Cabana Wife and I are undergoing peptide therapy at Restoration Wellness Med Spa and are thrilled with the results. We've both noticed greater mental clarity and increased energy. Whether your goal is to lose weight or just to improve your overall health, Restoration Wellness Med Spa has a solution for you. Maybe it's time for you to join more than 1,000 patients who have already seen life-changing results. Here's the number, 615-470-8124. And you can learn more at restorationwellnessmedspa.com.
A 19-year-old Israel American killed on October 7th, body being held by Hamas in Gaza. U.S. officials thought that was one of the 6 U.S. citizens maybe still alive there. Schools in Tennessee, one in particular, struggling with graduation rate. They have some excuses for that. And some big sports news for you Titans fans. 6 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, I want to mention that coming up, I guess it's tomorrow at 3:35, Senator Bill Hagerty will join us as our special guest. And then it's been a minute or two since we've had a chance to sit down with Governor Bill Lee. On Thursday at 5:05, he'll be our special guest, and we look forward to that conversation. All ahead right here on The Drive. Right now, 57 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock.
Six o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Gorgeous day in Nashville, 68 degrees. Traffic complete weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. The Israel Defense Forces announced this morning that E.T. Chen, a 19-year-old Israeli American, was killed on October 7th. The IDF says his body's being held by Hamas. Chen was one of at least 6 United States citizens still thought to be alive. Karen Travers has the latest from the White House.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says with the confirmation of E.T. Chen's death, the U.S. now believes there are 5 Americans being held hostage by Hamas. Sullivan on the news of his death.
This hits hard for us, this news. It hits hard for the president, it hits hard for me, it hits hard for a wide number of people who you guys have never heard of in the U.S. government who are working tirelessly for E.T.'s release.
Sullivan said the administration is working around the clock to secure the release of the remaining hostages.
And this news comes as the U.S. Army's 7th Transportation Brigade has been deployed following President Biden's orders to send troops to create an offshore aid port for Gaza. Schools back in the volunteer state. Fox 17 says that Glencliff High School is still struggling with graduation rate. Just 53% of students graduating in 2022, 60% last year. The district average over 80. The school also received an F letter grade from the state of Tennessee. Glencliff High School blaming these problems on a lack of resources and that most of their students are overage and that English is their second language. And in Nashville, staying here, the search for a missing Missouri college student focused along the Cumberland River today. The Tennessean reports search and rescue boats were launched this morning. Riley Strain went missing after being out on Broadway with his friends at Luke Bryan's bar. This was on Friday night. Channel 4's Brendan Tierney.
The owner of Luke's 32 Bridge say that the bar is working closely with police. They've handed over security video and other information to help in the search for Riley. His family has also been out here today with their own boat trying to find him. They say that he's pretty easy to spot. He's 6'7", and he was out and about with a group of friends on Friday night. So if anyone happened to see him, they're asked to call Metro Police to help get this family some closure.
And some big sports news for Titans fans. A legendary Titan in person in the Nashville community officially gone. Running back Derrick Henry has been signed by the Baltimore Ravens on a 2-year deal worth up to $20 million, $9 million guaranteed. The Ravens have been a fantastic rushing team and now add a 2-time rushing champion in King Henry. Henry led the league in rushing attempts last year, 4th in the AFC in touchdowns with 12. He leaves the Titans as the second leading rusher for the franchise, eclipsing that 8,500-yard mark, about 1,500 behind Eddie George. And we've got some sports/political news just now coming in. New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers is on Robert F. Kennedy's shortlist to be his running mate on an independent presidential ticket in November. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Well, good evening, everyone. Even though it's still got sunshine outside, I like that. It's still evening. It is 6:07 on Super Talk 99.7. The temperatures are cooling after a high of around, 71 degrees or so today. Still a very pleasant evening. We'll get you home safely, and you take care. And while you're getting there, we'll bring you some news and information. There are primaries taking place today in a number of states. And the thing that you need to walk away with it is that both Biden and Trump are poised now to clinch the nominations after Tuesday's balloting. So the ballots that will be counted tonight, no, there's never any doubt. I mean, right now, there's no doubt that Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee, and it seems increasingly likely that Biden's going to be the Democrat nominee. So that happens maybe tonight. They become the presumptive nominees. They still have to be officially, coronated, I guess is the right word, at the conventions. But, they have the delegates to clinch. I think Trump needs 1,215. 1215 is the magic number. And if all goes well, and can't imagine that it wouldn't, that things will be going very well for him to be the presumptive nominee tomorrow. Both candidates expected to secure enough delegates for party nods, and Georgia will be the most closely watched primary because it's one of those all-important battleground states to see how things shape up there. I do have some numbers from Georgia. In Georgia right now, if the election were to be held today in Georgia between Trump and Biden, Trump would win by 4. And if you do a 5-way analysis and take 5 of the candidates, including some of these lesser-known also running candidates, they take away from Joe Biden, and it would put him at +7. Trump would win by 7. So really, the likely outcome here, as things look today, is that Trump is leading in Georgia over Biden by 7 points, which is outside the margin of error. North Carolina, we have some numbers, just one poll. Trump leads in North Carolina by 5. In the general election, we have one general election poll, Trump and Biden nationwide. If the election were held today, the Harris X poll says Trump would lead by 4, but if you look at it in a 5-way race, which is probably more realistic, he wins by 6. 6 is right on the bubble of being on the margin of error, but I'm telling you, we're getting close to being outside the margin, maybe a hair outside the margin of error. And things are looking, I don't want to jinx it. And I know people say, Wilson, you're gonna mess around and jinx it. But I really do have some confidence. What we have seen, big picture here for a moment, bear with me. Big picture on all this is that it's been a long time since we've seen anything other than a trend that has Trump moving in the right direction and Biden moving in the wrong direction. You may quibble with this poll or that poll. You may not believe in polls, but when you have this many polls out there, and then you have a situation where there is a trend, a discernible trend, you have to have a little bit of optimism about the way things are headed. Now, it's early. A lot of things can happen. But honestly, I just want to say this because I think this election cycle is different from other election cycles in this one regard. We know the candidates pretty well. In a regular presidential year where you're trying to decide, the first time that Trump ran up against Hillary, we didn't really know Trump that well. We didn't really know Hillary that well as a leader. We knew her, but we didn't know, what she was going to be like as a president. And so, there was a lot of fluctuation and a lot of moving around in the numbers. And ultimately, they actually, some of the numbers got it wrong. They underestimated Trump. But what I want to tell you is that this time around, these are known entities. We've looked at Joe Biden and we know what he is. And we've seen Donald Trump and we know what he is. So I think maybe in a situation like this, people are likely to make their decisions pretty early on, and then it's going to take an awful lot to have them budge from those positions. So what you're doing is you're seeing movement around the margins. The hardcore Trump people are going to be there. The hardcore Biden people are going to be there. But the real question is what happens with the mushy middle, and what happens with some of these groups that are apparently very concerned. And this is where I think it's making a difference. There are some groups that have been reliable voting blocks for Democrats for some time now. Black voters have overwhelmingly always gone Democratic. But right now, if the polls are correct, Trump may be picking up as much as 21% of the black vote, 3 times what he got the last time he ran. 3 times. Black voters in America are disenchanted right now with the Democrat Party. Will they try to bring that back? Yeah, you bet they're going to do everything they can to bring that back around, but they're disenchanted. There are others. They got a real problem, the Democrats do, with Jewish voters who feel like the Biden is not sufficiently supportive of Israel. And then he's got another problem with the Arab American voters who think he's too supportive of Israel and not enough supportive of Gaza and Hamas. I don't know why he would ever. I mean, to me, the right thing to do is to support Israel, but he's going to have a real problem. He needs to win Michigan so badly, and there are a great number of Arab American voters in Michigan who are saying they're not going to vote for him at all. It may be about 13% of the electorate in Michigan, and it's a battleground state. So the way it's looking right now, it's starting to shape up. I mean, for a lot of different reasons, I have some optimism that it's shaping okay for Trump. The other thing that gives me optimism is the fact that we have Laura Trump and this Whatley guy now in charge of the RNC, and they seem to be dedicated to a couple of things. Number one, raising money, which we need to get caught up on because Republicans are not raising money the way they normally do, and Democrats are raising a ton of money right now. They're way ahead of us in the money game, and money is the mother milk of politics. But the other thing that they're talking about is we're going to do early voting. We're going to do mail-in ballots. We're going to do ballot harvesting where it is legal. We're going to play the same game that the Democrats. Big priority on that. We got a big turnout to vote. We got $62 million dedicated to a turnout the vote effort being put up by Ralph Reed and his organization. So, I think we're doing the right things. The thing that we've got to buckle down on and we've got to get better at, and it's the thing we must focus on, because I hear you. You're yelling at the radio right now. The Democrats will cheat, you say. I hear you saying this all the time. We open up the phones. People always talk about it. The polls are nice, but what if they cheat? We've got to get figured out how to find the fraud and report the fraud and convince people there is fraud in that short window between Election Day and the day that the votes are certified. It's a very tight window, and it's hard to prove this stuff. So I'm hoping that we're going to have, good lawyers in every area looking at these battleground states, especially. That's where if there's going to be cheating, it's going to be in a battleground state. You can count on that. The rest don't matter. Red states are going to be red. Blue states are going to be blue. It's the battleground states that matter, and it's where the middle lands that's going to determine the outcome of the election. So, feeling good about it all, but still a long way to go. RNC, as I mentioned, they got new leadership. You got Michael Whatley, former chairman of the North Carolina Republican Party, and Laura Trump, former President Trump's daughter-in-law, now in charge as chair and co-chair. And they're now basically firing a lot of people at the RNC. From justthenews.com, the Republican National Committee is in the process of cutting as many as 60 staffers just days after likely GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump installed new leadership. The cutback process began on Monday, being made across entire organizations, including the Political Communications and Data Department. Glad to hear that. Vendor contracts also expected to be cut. There will be some spending cuts, and they got to get serious about raising money and cutting costs. So Trump's people are in charge now at the RNC and will be, making the changes. I think they're not too late. Plenty of time to make those changes and get people back on the right track. So a lot going on with regard to that. Just a minute, real quick, just because I'm curious again. Go to the realclearpolitics.com. Look at the round numbers here. Right now, if the election were held today, Real Clear Politics average, which is always a little behind where the numbers truly are, have Trump winning by 1.7. Now you say that's pretty tight, Brian. Yes. In a 5-way race, it's 2.9. That's 3%. In the top battlegrounds, which is really what you care about, Trump is leading on average about 4. That's good. That's really good. And the battleground states, here we go. Wisconsin, Trump is up by 1. So that's tight. That's a true battleground state. Arizona, Trump is up by 5.5. Georgia, Trump is up by 6.2. Michigan, Trump up by 3.6, and that is huge. Pennsylvania, they have Biden on the average leading, but the last couple of polls has Trump eking it out, but not by much. It's pretty tight in Pennsylvania. North Carolina, 5.5. Nevada, Trump leads by 7.7. So in Nevada, in North Carolina, in Georgia, in Arizona, and maybe you could say in Michigan, things are looking really good for Trump right now in all of those battleground states. Those things, some of these numbers are getting out beyond the margin of error, which looks really, really, really good. If you look at the betting averages in Las Vegas, they say they give odds of Trump a 45% chance of winning the presidency and Biden a 32.6% chance. So there you go. Obama, they still have Obama in here. She's like, I mean, I don't know why they continue to do that. 6% chance of becoming president. She's not going to become president. She's not running. All right, let's call it 20 minutes now past the hour at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You know, the chairman of the Federal Reserve has said that we're on an unsustainable fiscal path. The government is never going to pay off the $34 trillion debt anytime soon. What they'll do, they'll print money to pay the interest on the debt and then debase the U.S. dollar in the process. You know, you might want to think about making an investment that may really last. And you know what? You might want to think about gold and silver. Maybe you've thought about adding gold and silver, other precious metals to your portfolio, but you feel like you don't have the knowledge you need to make a decision. Well, that's the way I felt. But then I got professional guidance that I needed from Nashville Gold and Coin. Now, here's the way it works. You make an appointment, then you sit down one-on-one with my friends at Nashville Gold and Coin. They'll answer all your questions, help you make the precious metals investment that is right for you. It's friendly. You will learn a lot, and you'll never be subjected to a high-pressure sales pitch. Gold and silver can be a safe haven in uncertain economic times. And my friends at Nashville Gold and Coin are standing by to answer all your questions about the precious metals market. To set up that one-on-one appointment, just go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. We're talking about all those numbers and how it was going to be a day where Biden and Trump would clinch the nominations. Fox News has already called it for Biden. He has clinched the nomination. He's won Georgia. Trump has won Georgia as well. Before the night is over, it seems pretty clear that he'll clinch as well. Trump pulling at 80% of the vote in Georgia, but still about 19% of the voters in Georgia are looking for another option. So, okay, that's great news. Things are going as predicted here in the early talents, the balloting that's coming in. They've already closed the polls over there, so these numbers are not expected to be anything shocking. We knew this was going to happen, but it is happening. I want to mention very quickly that we had a testimony here today from Jake Sullivan in the White House briefing room about where we are with regard to American hostages, or maybe dual citizenship hostages that are still being held by Hamas. We now know that one person has died. There used to be, the feeling was there were 6, but now we know that there are now 5 left.
Many Americans or dual citizens are now believed to be held hostage currently in Gaza.
We believe that number is 5. It was 6. We believe it is now 5.
All right, so there's that. The other big news from Jake Sullivan today, who's the national security advisor to President Biden, is that they have found $300 million that they're sending to Ukraine. Now, this is not new money that has been approved by Congress, because that's still locked up in a big debate. House of Representatives says no money for Ukraine, no money for anybody until we secure the border. And the president doesn't seem to be willing to have any further conversations about that. But Jake Sullivan said they found $300 million. Here's how they explain it.
So today, on behalf of President Biden, I'm announcing an emergency package of security assistance of $300 million worth of weapons and equipment to address some of Ukraine's pressing needs. This is possible because of unanticipated cost savings in contracts that DoD negotiated to replace equipment we've already sent to Ukraine through previous drawdowns.
You know what? I'm going to call you know what on that. They're playing a shell game here. They can't get the money out of Congress, and so but they still want to try to do something. So they're finding, they're moving money around. It's like the big peanut shell game, where's the peanut? Where's the peanut? Where's the peanut? They're moving things around, playing fast and loose with the numbers. I don't really believe that they found $300 million, but they're going to somehow make it look like they did. When you talk about, billions and trillions of dollars in the budget, $300 million, although it sounds like a lot, is a rounding error. Quite frankly, I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. I wish I could be the beneficiary of such a rounding error. I'd take just one. I'd be very happy with just one of those million.
Yeah, I can make do with that.
Yeah, you could make do. I mean, $1 million is life-changing money. I'm telling you, it really is. But we toss around numbers like millions and billions, but really we're talking now budgets that are in the trillions, and it's almost mind-boggling when you start talking about numbers that large. So somehow they're moving. They're playing games. There's no doubt about it. This is not real money. This is. Well, we found some savings over here, so we can then move this money over here and do what we wanted to do. Seriously, I hope that Congress is looking pretty closely at some of these shenanigans that are going on. And Ukraine is a tough one. I mean, there are Republicans who believe that money should be given to Ukraine. And I know that many of you don't believe that. I'm on the bubble about it. I can argue it square, or I can argue it round. I mean, I really can. I can see advantages and disadvantages. I sort of understand that if you have the enemy of your enemy is your friend, and if Ukraine is willing to fight Russia and degrade their military, and they have, and we don't have to put any boots on the ground to do that, they have really taken a big hunk out of the Russian military's ability to respond, and degraded the military a tremendous amount. It's cost us money, yes. Was it worth it? I think that's a point that can be argued either way. I am under no illusions that the Ukrainians are necessarily nice people, but I also know that it has been in the national security interest at times for the United States to associate itself with people who are not necessarily nice people, but from a national security standpoint, they can be helpful to us. So I can see that aspect of it. I also see the point where people say we're just throwing good money after bad. But I just have this feeling that if Putin were allowed to run through the Ukraine, that would not be where he stops. And I think everybody pretty much knows that. So that's the concern I have, because if they go into NATO countries, guess what? We're in it. So I'm not thrilled about the way they're doing it. I'd rather they do it above board and do it honestly. And I'm not completely sure it's the right thing to do at all. But I do see at least some benefits to the continued support of Ukraine. I definitely believe that we should be supporting Israel. Right now, it doesn't seem like the administration is all that hot to send more money to Israel. The relationships between the Biden administration and the Israeli government right now pretty tense. And it looks like Bibi Netanyahu, who I've always had some admiration for, is bound and determined to do whatever he thinks is right with regard to fighting the war against Hamas. And if it injures the relationship with the United States, I think Bibi's just fine with that. 31 minutes now past the hour at 6 o'clock, time for the news. You know, with all the rain and the water that we've been having lately, you really should look at your house and make sure you don't have a waterproofing issue. I mean, do you have standing water in crawl spaces, wet basement walls, musty odors, or floor joists that have wood rot? That's a real concern. Cracks in basement floors, hardwood floors that are cupping. If you find these things, your house is trying to tell you something. You've got issues, and you need to call the people over at USS. If you have structural issues, they're the people to call. You got waterproofing issues, they're also the people to call. This is what they do. They have more than 25,000 satisfied residential customers, and you could be the next one. Here's what happens. They'll just come out, and they'll take a look at your situation. They're not going to try to sell you something you don't need. They're not going to try to upcharge you on any of that. They simply want to fix your problem, and they have the expertise to identify the problem and find the solution. And then if you decide to go forward, you don't pay a penny until the job is done and you are completely satisfied. And we want you to be satisfied. Listen, I'm telling you, it's a good place to do business. They are good people. They treat you right. They have a great reputation. And people who have worked with them just rave about the folks at USS. At USS, they guarantee their best, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, online at USSTN.com. Call this number, 615-488-7855. It's 38 minutes now past the hour at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. And you're listening to The Drive for 22 more minutes. Then we hand it over to Mark Levin, the great one. He's going to carry on, as he often does, throughout the evening. I want to mention very quickly, just because I did make an earlier error, and I want to get errors straightened out. I don't like to be an error. Error is a hard word to say. Try saying that word, error.
Well, especially when you say it like that.
Error.
Error.
Error. Error. I don't know. I was talking about the situation with Ken Buck, who's a member of the House from Colorado, who announced today he's leaving next week. Now, he was expected to not run for re-election, but he's tired. He's out. And he's been, it's been very clear that Ken Buck has not been happy with his role in the Republican majority there in the House for some time now. He's been sort of like, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Sort of like the person who's always ruining everything that's going on. Republicans want to do this. He wants to do the opposite. I had some metaphors there, but then I decided they were inappropriate. But anyway, I said earlier that meant that our margin was down to 1. But what I failed to consider, and you have to always check this, I don't know, we were at a point where you could only afford to lose 2 votes, and then I assumed that meant that now we only could lose 1. As it turns out, we've lost some members of Congress. Any time, you got to keep what's the big number? Well, when Congress is at full capacity, it's 435. Right now we have 431. So it remains the same. We still have a 2-vote margin, but if you lose 2 votes, then it's a tie. And guess what happens in a tie? In a tie, the measure does not go forward. So it's still tight as a tick. And as far as Buck is concerned, looks like we won't have a replacement for him until after June. I've been looking at what happens in the state of Colorado. The next special election, 431 members, 218 Republicans, 213 Democrats. Now the GOP will only lose 2 votes on their own, writes Fox News. This is Chad Pergram, and he's always right. The special election is for the seat occupied. There's a special election for a seat occupied by former Representative Brian Higgins of Democrat of New York on April 30th. If that seat stays in Democrat hands, the new breakdown is 432 members with 218 Republicans and 214 Democrats. So, on April 30th, this will probably go down to 1 seat margin. And a special election is set to succeed former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy on May 21st. And so there you go. I mean, a lot of moving parts here. But right now, for the moment, it's 2 seats. But if, as expected, the Democrat wins that seat in New York, then we go down to a 1-seat margin. And, man, I'm telling you, I hate to say this, but, I mean, you really, that's very thin margin. I mean, what do you do in a situation, let's say, like if one Republican, there's 435 members of Congress when you're at full capacity. And a lot of these people are just old. I mean, let's be honest. Things happen. When you look at any body of people, the average age of what we're talking about for people who serve in the House of Representatives, you're going to find that a few people get cancer. And it just statistically, that's going to happen. Horrible things can happen. Bad things can happen to people, and you may lose a member. If we lose one more Republican member, it's a tie. And I don't know what you do in a situation like that. I don't know exactly. I mean, that opens up all kinds of questions. So long story short, our margins in the House are very thin. Now, I look at the Senate and the future for the Senate. Remember, 1/3 of the Senate is up for re-election every 2 years. It's 1/3 of the Senate up for re-election. They serve 6-year terms. All right. The way it falls this year is there are a great number more Democrats who are defending seats than there are Republicans. And we actually have a pretty good chance of picking up, I think, the Senate in the coming election. I'm really worried about whether or not we can hold on to the House. But the hope is that Donald Trump is going to win by a landslide, and he'll have coattails. We'll see. But one way or the other, it is so very tight in the House of Representatives. On Capitol Hill today, and then again yesterday as well, Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, was testifying about his concerns, his national security concerns. And he said he's very concerned about the border and something that's going on there. There's a group of people out there that he's very concerned about, these coyotes who have some kind of connection to ISIS.
Organizations are run by or are conducted by people that have ties, for example, to ISIS or other terrorist organizations.
So I want to be a little bit careful how far I can go in open session, but there is a particular network that has where some of the overseas facilitators of the smuggling network have ISIS ties that we're very concerned about, and that we've been spending an enormous amount of effort with our partners investigating. Exactly what that network is up to is something that's, again, the subject of our current investigation.
But there is a network we're concerned about that has facilitators involved in it that have ties to ISIS and other terrorist organizations.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's concerning, isn't it? As are the 1.8 million people who've come into this country that we don't know anything about. Trust me when I say the intelligence services of countries that do not have the United States' best interests at heart are taking full advantage of this, especially the Chinese. And if you know what, if it were us and you had a similar situation, we would take advantage of it too. It's just what you do. Oh, this wonderful opportunity now exists. Let's smuggle a bunch of spies into the United States, and just everybody think that they're just Chinese people who are looking for a better way of life. No, they will infiltrate into the United States. They will disappear into the fabric of the nation, and just wait for the call from Beijing. Hey, we need you to do this. You need you to do that. And believe me, they are taking advantage of it in a huge way. This was not really covered on the national newscast last night, that we have, coyotes with ISIS connections down on the southern border taking advantage of the chaos created by the Biden administration. Well, with the exception of ABC News, who did some reporting on it.
The FBI concerned about the potential that terrorists and others might try to come through a porous southern border.
A whole host of threats that emanate from the border, and some of them are criminal threats. We talked about fentanyl and violence. And then, of course, we have concerns that it could be a vulnerability that terrorist organizations could seek to exploit.
Tonight, the FBI director continues to warn that the terror threat is, quote, at a whole other level. And with the war still raging in Gaza, nothing has changed to diminish his concerns. David?
That list was extensive today. Pierre, thank you.
That's Pierre Thomas reporting on the ABC Nightly News last night. Andrew Cuomo gave a speech on Sunday, and, he's the disgraced former governor of New York. And I don't know, I guess he's trying to worm his way back into politics. So he's out there giving speeches. But it is interesting to note, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo on Sunday slammed the Biden administration for causing an unprecedented influx of illegal immigrants, which has overwhelmed officials and the resources of cities such as New York City. Listen to his quote. "This is the worst government blunder I have seen in my life," Cuomo said during a speech at a Bronx church, referring to the Big Apple's ongoing migrant crisis. "You have the federal government, which is where it starts. It's starting at the border with a sign that says, 'Come to the United States of America and claim asylum.' And 2 million people come, of course, from Venezuela, Honduras, and Guatemala. 2 million. Huh, that's just the gotaways. They get to the border and they say, 'Where do you want to go?' They say, 'We want to go to New York.' What are you going to say? 'I want to go to Nevada'?" Cuomo also condemned New York Governor Kathy Hochul, who replaced him, for keeping the migrant problem in the Big Apple and not urging the rest of New York State to share the burden. They get to New York, they get to New York State. You can only go to New York City. You can only go to New York City, not the Hudson Valley, not upstate New York, not Long Island, not only New York City, he says. So he's really attacking the Biden administration as a Democrat, but I guess, a Democrat who doesn't hold any public office. But it is interesting that, once you get out, you can look at things with clear eyes and say the truth, and that is the truth. He's right about it. This is infuriating to me. Very quickly, Samuel Alito, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, extended a temporary freeze on a decision that would have allowed Texas local police to arrest immigrants to take effect. Now, they put a freeze on that, and now they have extended that freeze as the matter is now being considered by the High Court. Greg Abbott signed this into law in response to the record number of illegal crossings, but the Department of Justice sued Texas to prevent its enforcement in January, and for now, that law cannot be enacted, which is a damn shame, and Sam Alito ought to know better. If the United States government is not going to do its job and secure the border, are you supposed to let the state of Texas just stand by and suffer? That's not right. That doesn't seem like our founding fathers that'd be something they would agree with. They would expect them to do what they needed to do to protect themselves. And I think Alito is dead wrong on this one. That brings us to 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. If you've lived here for a long time, you already know about Eurofix and how it's been in Middle Tennessee as your European car repair needs are being met there for some 24 years. We've all watched them grow. Well, I don't know about you, but I love watching a hometown business take off, and the folks at Eurofix want you to know that they are very proud that they have a 5th location now in Mount Juliet for Eurofix on Mount Juliet Road, right across the street from the Dairy Queen. Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belle Meade, and of course now in Mount Juliet. It's pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic who started in a barn in the backyard of his single-wide trailer, growing to 5 locations and now repairing thousands of cars each month. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. So call them, make your appointment, 844-EUROFIX, 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEurofix.com.